Welcome, night owls and shadow lovers, to the Campfire Tales Halloween Compilation 2025. All the tales, back to back, no breaks, no history, just pure midnight terror to haunt your All Hallows Eve. From Salem mirrors to Bayou Rougarou, London prams to Philippine Manananggals, every scream, bump, and whisper is here. Grab your headphones, light a jack-o'-lantern, lock the doors, and let the fire burn till dawn. Happy Halloween. The tales begin now. Once, in a small village, nestled deep in a quiet valley, there lived a girl named Clara. She was kind, with eyes that sparkled like the morning dew, and a smile that warmed even the coldest hearts. But everyone noticed one strange thing about Clara. She always wore a green velvet ribbon around her neck. Day or night, summer or winter, that ribbon never left her. If anyone asked why, she'd laugh, touch the ribbon gently, and say, "It's just part of me." Clara had a suitor, a young man named Thomas, who loved her dearly. They'd walk hand in hand through the village, dreaming of a future together. But Thomas was curious, too curious. "Clara," he'd say, "why do you never take off that ribbon?" She'd smile, her eyes flickering with something unspoken, and reply, "Please, don't ask. It's just part of me." Years passed, and Clara and Thomas married. They built a little home filled with laughter and love. But Thomas's curiosity never faded. One night by the firelight, he reached for the ribbon. "Clara, we're husband and wife now. Surely you can tell me, why the ribbon?" Her face grew pale, her voice sharp. "Thomas, promise me, never touch it. Never untie it." He nodded, but the question burned inside him. One moonless night, Clara slept deeply. Thomas lay awake, staring at the green ribbon glowing faintly in the dark. His fingers itched. "Just a peek," he whispered to himself. "What harm could it do?" Slowly, carefully, he reached over and tugged the ribbon's knot. It slipped loose, soft as a sigh. And then gasped, Clara's head rolled off her shoulders, tumbling to the floor. Her eyes snapped open, staring at Thomas, and in a voice cold as the grave she whispered, "I told you, never untie it." Thomas screamed, but no one heard. The village found him the next morning trembling, unable to speak. Clara was gone, her body vanished, leaving only the green ribbon on the bed. Some say her spirit still wanders, searching for those who don't listen, her head tucked under her arm, the ribbon trailing behind. Across Europe, another tale echoes this warning. In a shadowed German forest, during the days when witches were burned, lived a woman named Gretchen. She was quiet, her face pale as bone, and around her neck was a black ribbon knotted tightly. The villagers feared her, whispering of curses, but Hans, a woodcutter, loved her fiercely. "Why the ribbon, Gretchen?" he'd ask, chopping wood by their cottage. She'd smile, eyes dark as coal, and say, "Never untie it, Hans. It's all that keeps me here." One winter night, as snow buried the forest, Gretchen slept by the hearth. Hans's curiosity burned hotter than the fire. He pulled the black ribbon's knot, and Gretchen's head fell, rolling across the floor. Her eyes glowed red, her voice a hiss. "I was a witch, Hans, bound by this ribbon. Now I'm free." Her body vanished in smoke, and the cottage filled with cold, demonic laughter. That night, the village burned, Gretchen's spirit loosed by Hans's folly. In a small American town where the highway stretched lonely under the stars, a young man named Jake drove home late one rainy night. The road was empty, the radio static, when his headlights caught a figure. A girl in a white dress, soaked, thumb out for a ride. Jake pulled over and she climbed into the back seat, her face pale but pretty. "Can you take me to Elm Street?" she asked, her voice soft as the rain. Jake nodded, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "Sure thing. What's your name?" She smiled faintly. "Lily," she said, then fell silent. Jake drove on, the wipers thumping like a heartbeat. He tried to make small talk, but Lily only stared out the window, her dress dripping water. When they reached Elm Street, Jake turned to say they'd arrived, but the back seat was empty. No Lily, no wet stains, just his old jacket on the seat. Heart pounding, he knocked on the house at 123 Elm Street. An old woman answered, her eyes weary. "You saw Lily," she said, not a question. "She was my daughter, died in a crash on that highway 10 years ago. She still tries to get home." Jake never drove that road again. But others have. And some say they've seen Lily too, her white dress glowing in the rain, vanishing when they reach her stop. Her story lingers, a whisper on the wind, a shadow in the rearview mirror. Long ago, a traveler named Seamus rode his cart through a misty bog at midnight. A woman in a flowing white gown flagged him down, her face hidden by a hood. "To the old church," she whispered, climbing aboard. Seamus felt a chill, but urged his horse on. The cart rattled, her silence heavy. When they reached the ruined church, he turned to speak, but she was gone, her seat empty, save for a faint scent of decay. Villagers later told him the White Lady was a banshee, a spirit tied to a family's doom, luring travelers to abandoned places. Seamus fell ill days later, never recovering, his curiosity his curse. In a quiet Midwestern town where lovers' lanes were hidden by thick trees, Jenny and Mark parked their car one summer night. The radio played soft tunes, the windows fogged with their breath. They were lost in each other when the music cut out. A news bulletin crackled. An escaped convict armed with a hook for a hand was seen near Willow Lane. Jenny froze. Willow Lane was right where they were. "Mark, let's go," she whispered, but he laughed it off. "Just a story," he said, kissing her again. Then it came, a sharp scrape against the car door, like metal on metal. Jenny screamed, "Drive!" Mark, spooked now, gunned the engine and sped away. The scraping stopped, but Jenny's heart pounded. When they reached her house, Mark got out to open her door. He froze, staring at the handle. There, dangling, was a bloody hook, torn from its owner's arm, caught in the metal. Jenny's scream echoed into the night. They never returned to Willow Lane, but some say the hook-handed man still lurks, his scrape a warning to curious lovers. A young couple, Eliza and Thomas, parked their carriage near a foggy heath. As they whispered sweet nothings, a scratching sound clawed at the wood. Thomas, curious, grabbed his lantern and stepped out to check. Eliza heard a scream, then silence. Trembling, she urged the horse forward, the carriage lurching away. At home, she found a rusted blade wedged in the carriage door, blood dripping from its edge. Villagers said it was the spirit of a highwayman, executed on that heath, his ghostly knife scratching for new victims. Thomas was never seen again, his curiosity, his doom. In a forgotten corner of a small town stood an old house, its windows dark and its walls sagging like weary shoulders. Locals called it the Weeping House, for at night it moaned, soft sobs echoing from within. No one had lived there since Sarah, a young widow, vanished decades ago. One stormy evening, a curious boy named Ethan, egged on by friends, crept toward the house on a dare. The door creaked open as if inviting him in. Inside, the air was thick, the walls damp, as if the house itself cried. Ethan's flashlight caught a figure, a woman in a tattered dress, her face hidden, weeping by the fireplace. "Help me," she whispered, her voice like breaking glass. Ethan, heart racing, stepped closer, but the floor groaned, and the woman turned. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth a scream. "Why did you come?" she wailed, and the walls shook, tears streaming down the wallpaper. Ethan ran, the door slamming shut behind him. When he looked back, the house was silent, but his friends swore they saw a woman's face in the window, watching him flee. Ethan never spoke of it again, but the weeping house still stands, its sobs calling to the curious. Some say Sarah's spirit is trapped, mourning a betrayal no one remembers. The Grey Widow's cottage tells of a crumbling home where a widow Morag lived alone after her children vanished. A curious peddler, Ian, ignored village warnings and knocked one misty night. The door swung open, revealing Morag, gray and gaunt, her eyes like storm clouds. "Stay away," she hissed. Ian, drawn by tales of hidden gold, stepped inside. Scratching filled the walls and Morag's form flickered, her hands clawing at him. Ian fled, but the village woke to find their crops withered, their wells dry. Morag's curse, unleashed by Ian's greed, had spread, her cottage now a ruin where no one dares tread. On a lonely stretch of highway in rural Ohio, Sarah drove home late one autumn night. Her headlights cut through the dark. the radio a low hum. In her rearview mirror, she noticed a truck tailing her, its high beams flashing on and off. Annoyed, Sarah sped up, but the truck stayed close, flashing again. "What's his problem?" she muttered, her curiosity piqued. She slowed to let him pass, but the truck kept pace, its lights blinding her. Fear crept in. Stories of road rage filled her mind. Sarah pulled into a gas station, heart pounding, ready to confront the driver. But as she stopped, a man leapt from the truck, shouting, "Get out! There's someone in your back seat!" Trembling, Sarah turned. A stranger sat there, knife gleaming, his face twisted in a grin. The truck driver had seen him each time he flashed his beams, trying to warn her. Sarah screamed as the police arrived, arresting the man. She never drove alone at night again, and some say the stranger's shadow still lurks on that highway, waiting for the next curious driver. In the 1800s, the phantom coach chilled travelers. One foggy night, a merchant, William, rode his horse through a desolate moor. A black coach appeared, its driver silent, beckoning him to follow. Curious, William urged his horse closer, but the coach sped up, its wheels silent. At a crossroads, he caught up, peering inside. Empty seats stared back, but a cold hand grazed his neck. The coach vanished and William's horse bolted. Villagers found him feverish, raving about ghostly passengers. He died days later, his curiosity blamed for summoning the coach, a cursed omen that dooms those who chase it. In a quiet suburban town, Emily took a babysitting job for the wealthy Carter family. Their house was grand, filled with odd trinkets, but the kids were sweet, tucked in by 9. As Emily settled on the couch, she noticed a life-size clown statue in the living room corner, its painted grin unsettling under the dim light. She shrugged it off, texting her friend Lisa about the creepy decor. "Check if it's real," Lisa texted back, half joking. Curious, Emily approached the statue, its glass eyes glinting. Was it blinking? Heart racing, Emily called Mr. Carter. "That clown statue in the living room. It's freaking me out. Can I move it?" she questioned, standing in the hallway. Silence stretched on the line. "Emily," Mr. Carter's voice shook. "We don't own a clown statue. Get the kids and get out now!" Hearing rustling behind her, Emily turned to see the clown statue had moved to the center of the living room. Terrified, Emily rushed down the hall to the children's room. Slamming the bedroom door shut and locking it, she heard heavy footsteps coming down the hall. Climbing out of the bedroom window, Emily and the children hurried to the neighbor's house. Police later found no statue, but a drifter who'd been hiding in the house, dressed as a clown, watching Emily all night. Some say he still stalks quiet homes, waiting for the curious to notice him. The painted doll tells of a girl, Rosa, babysitting in a creaky hacienda. A porcelain doll sat on a shelf, its painted smile too wide. Rosa, curious, touched it, feeling a strange warmth. That night, the doll's eyes followed her, its head turning slightly. Panicked, Rosa called the homeowners, who gasped, "We locked that doll in the attic. It's cursed." Rosa fled with the child as the doll's laughter echoed. The village priest later burned it, but crops failed for months, blamed on Rosa's touch. Her curiosity had woken a spirit tied to the doll, cursing all who lived there. In a small town, Anna, a high school senior, dreamed of the perfect prom dress but couldn't afford one. One rainy afternoon, she wandered into a thrift shop where a white satin evening gown gleamed on a rack, impossibly cheap. "It's perfect," Anna gasped, trying it on. It fit like it was made for her, though its cold fabric made her shiver. The shopkeeper, pale and quiet, seemed shocked. "No, not that one," she murmured, taking the dress and putting it aside. She tried showing Anna other dresses just as pretty and affordable. Anna, too excited, ignored the warning, her curiosity fixed on wearing it to prom. When the shopkeeper had her back turned, Anna took the white satin gown and hurried out of the shop. At the dance, Anna glowed, but as the night wore on, she felt weak, her skin clammy. Friends noticed her swaying, her eyes distant. "I'm fine," she insisted, dancing on. By midnight, she collapsed, her lips blue. Paramedics couldn't save her. When they cut the gown off, her skin was marked with faint gray handprints. The shopkeeper later admitted the dress came from a girl who died in it decades ago, poisoned by a lover's betrayal. Some say her spirit lingers in the satin, cursing anyone who wears it, drawn by their curiosity. The shopkeeper had been shocked to see it, as she had gotten rid of the cursed gown long ago. Anna's friends burned the gown, but some swear they see it in thrift shops still, waiting for the next dreamer to try it on. The cursed kimono tells of a young woman, Hana, who found a crimson kimono in a market stall, its silk impossibly vibrant. Drawn by its beauty, she ignored the vendor's warning, "Don't wear it." Hana donned it for a festival, feeling a chill as it clung to her. By night's end, she screamed, her body racked with pain. The kimono tightened, as if alive, and Hana collapsed, dead, her skin etched with ghostly burns. The vendor revealed it belonged to a woman burned for witchcraft, her spirit woven into the silk, cursing any who wore it. Hana's village withered for years, her curiosity blamed for the blight. In the deep Minnesota woods during a brutal winter, a trapper named Eli set out to check his lines. Snow buried the trails, and hunger gnawed at him. Locals had warned him, "Don't wander alone, the Wendigo hunts the greedy." Eli, curious about the old tales, scoffed and pressed deeper. A strange howl echoed, not wolf nor wind. Then he saw it. A gaunt figure, tall as the pines, with antlers and eyes like burning coals. Its voice whispered his name, promising food if he followed. Eli's curiosity pulled him closer, the air growing colder. The creature's skeletal hand beckoned, and Eli stumbled after it. Days later, his friend Paul found their camp abandoned, claw marks gouging the trees. Eli's tracks led to a frozen lake, then vanished. Villagers whispered he'd become the Wendigo's prey, his soul cursed to hunger forever. Some say his screams still echo in the pines, calling others to the same fate. In Inuit folklore, a similar terror stalks the Arctic. The Rougarou tells of a hunter, Nunik, who ignored elders' warnings and tracked caribou into forbidden tundra. A shadow moved, human-like but wrong, its eyes shifting shapes. "Follow me," it whispered, offering endless game. Nunik, curious, trailed it, but the air turned to ice, his vision blurring. He awoke alone, his family's camp burned, their bodies gone. The Rougarou, a shapeshifter, had lured him, cursing his kin for his folly. The village starved that winter, Nunik's curiosity, its ruin. In a quiet Indiana suburb where streetlights flickered through fog, lived Sarah, a teenager babysitting overnight for her neighbors for extra cash. The Thompsons' house was old, its floorboards groaning underfoot, and local teens whispered of strange noises from its attic, dismissed as wind. Sarah, her curiosity tempered by bravado, ignored the tales, focused on the sleeping kids upstairs. One rainy night, as thunder rumbled, the phone rang, its shrill tone cutting through the silence. A rasping voice whispered, "Check the children." Thinking it a prank, Sarah hung up, but the calls persisted, each one louder, the voice hissing, "Check the children." The air grew heavy, reeking of damp wood and something sour, fear itself. Compelled, she crept toward the stairs, her hands trembling, the shadows twisting like claws. A thump echoed from the attic, slow and deliberate, pacing her steps. She checked the kids, safe in their beds, but the phone rang again, the voice snarling, "Check the children." The lights flickered, her flashlight dimmed, and the attic's trapdoor creaked as if opening. Shadows loomed on the walls, playing tricks on Sarah's eyes and mind. Sarah froze, her heart pounding. "Get it together, Sarah! It's just a creepy old house and a stupid prank." She whispered to herself as she dialed the local police station to report the prankster. An officer LeBlanc answered Sarah's call. He assured her he would trace the caller and give them a warning to stop with the prank calls. Officer LeBlanc told Sarah if she had any more trouble with the prank caller after that to call him back immediately, and he would send an officer to the prankster's house to deal with them in person. Sarah thanked Officer LeBlanc, feeling relieved, and hung up. Moments later the phone rang, startling Sarah, causing her to jump. Hesitantly, she answered the phone. "Hello?" she murmured quietly. "Sarah, this is Officer LeBlanc. I tracked the call. It's coming from the second line upstairs." Get the children and get out of there now. I have officers on their way to you now. Sarah dropped the phone and hurried to the children, fearful they may be in trouble. Sarah stood with the children on her best friend's porch, watching the police search the house and yard across the street. She eyed her house next to the Thompsons' house, just wanting to go home and feel safe. One of the officers came over to her. We've checked the house top to bottom and the surrounding area outside. We couldn't find anyone or any evidence that anyone had broken in, but the back door was unlocked. Whoever was in the house with you is long gone. We've called Mr. Thompson and let him know what happened. He and Mrs. Thompson are on their way, but won't be here till tomorrow morning. Will you be okay going back into the house with the children? He informed Sarah. Sarah looked at the children, looking scared and confused. Deciding she didn't want to upset them further, she replied, "Yes," trying to sound as brave as she could. "Very well, call us if you have any more problems," the officer said with a reassuring smile. Sarah nodded, taking the children's hands and guiding them back to their house. Her best friend decided to stay with her for the night, so Sarah and the children wouldn't be alone. By dawn, Sarah was shaking, her dreams plagued by the heavy steps of an unseen man. The Thompsons' mirrors seemed to fog, reflecting twisted faces, and their clocks stopped, ticking backward. Her best friend, staying over, woke to find their windows etched with claw-like marks, the air thick with a rotting stench. The Thompsons returned home and Sarah quickly left, and though the events of that night haunted her, that didn't stop her from continuing to babysit for the Thompsons. Perhaps it should have. Whenever she would babysit, thumps began to follow Sarah, echoing from the walls, and shadows swayed, mimicking a figure's form. Scared and confused, Sarah sought an elderly neighbor who spoke of a drifter who used to lurk in the house many years ago, his spirit believed to be bound to the attic in which he hid. Some whispered he had lured teen girls to that house who were never heard from again. Sarah tried locking the door to the attic, but it rattled whenever she was there, and the house's faucets dripped red. The Thompsons moved unexpectedly without a word one night. Neighbors whispered it was from fear. One night, Sarah vanished, her cries lost in the attic's deathly embrace. The suburb fell silent, but some say the phone still rings, luring babysitters to check upstairs. In the humid haze of Sydney's inner suburbs, where the air hangs heavy with the scent of eucalyptus and exhaust, there was a small hair salon tucked between a kebab shop and a laundromat. It was the kind of place where locals came for a quick trim and a chat about the footy, not for anything more dramatic. But for Mia, the 28-year-old stylist who had taken over the salon from her mum 5 years ago, the drama arrived one sticky afternoon in the form of a phone call. The bell above the door jingled as the last client left, leaving Mia to sweep clippings from the floor. The phone rang, a shrill, old-fashioned trill from the cordless handset on the counter. Mia wiped her hands on her apron and picked it up, expecting the booking. "Hello, Sheer Bliss Salon, Mia speaking," she said, her voice bright despite the day's end. There was a pause, then a woman's voice, soft and measured, with a faint accent that could have been from anywhere in the country. "Hello, I'd like to book my daughters for a fade." Mia blinked, glancing at the appointment book. "A fade? For your daughters?" "Sure. How many are there, and when would you like them in?" Another pause, longer this time, filled with the hum of the air conditioner and the distant rumble of traffic. "Just the usual, the fade, for Christine's daughters." Mia frowned, flipping through the book. "No Christine, no daughters. I'm sorry, I don't see a Christine here. Could you give me her number or last name?" The line crackled like static from a storm miles away. "It's Christine. They need the fade. Tell them Mum called." Before Mia could respond, the line went dead. She stared at the phone, a chill prickling her skin despite the humidity. It was odd, but Sydney was full of oddballs. She shrugged it off, locked up, and headed home to her tiny flat above a cafe where the only company was her cat and the glow of her phone screen scrolling through TikToks of ghost stories. The call came again 2 days later, just as Mia was mid-cut on a regular. She let it go to voicemail, but the message was the same. That raspy voice, insistent on the fade for Christine's daughters. Mia listened to it 3 times, the words looping in her head like a broken record. Creepy, she muttered to her coworker Jess during their lunch break. Like one of those urban legends. You know, the ones where the ghost calls and asks for something weird? Jess laughed, but her eyes darted to the phone. Yeah, like that creepy Christine story. My nan used to tell it. Some woman who calls salons for 20 years, always the same thing. Daughters need a fade. But it's just a prank, right? Some bored old lady. Mia nodded, but that night, as she lay in bed with the fan whirring overhead, the phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered, heart skipping. Hello? Hello, it's Christine. My daughters need the fade. The voice was closer this time, the accent clearer, perhaps from the outback with a drawl that lingered on the S in daughters. Mia's mouth went dry. Look, I think there's a mistake. We don't have a Christine on the books. Can you call someone else? The pause stretched, filled with breathing, slow, deliberate. They know me. Tell them Mum called. The fade. It's time. Click. Mia sat up, the room suddenly colder, the fan's hum sounding like distant whispers. She searched online, half laughing at herself, typing "creepy Christine hair salon calls." The results flooded in. Forums from Perth to Brisbane, stories from the 90s onward. Hairdressers across Australia reporting the same call, the same voice, the same request. Daughters need a fade. Some said it started in the 80s, others earlier. No one knew who Christine was or why. One post from a salon in Melbourne claimed the calls stopped after they played a recording of a baby crying back at her. The line went dead and never rang again. But Mia's phone stayed silent for 3 days. Then it came at midnight, the screen lighting her face in the dark. Unknown. She let it ring, but the voicemail notification buzzed immediately. She played it, volume low. Hello, it's Christine. My daughters need the fade. They're waiting. Mia deleted it, but the words stuck, burrowing like splinters. The next morning, a client came in, a woman in her 50s. Her hair choppy and unkempt. Just a trim, she said, but her eyes were red-rimmed as if she'd been crying. As Mia snipped, the woman murmured, You know about Christine, don't you? The calls. My salon got them for years. Daughters need a fade. I looked it up. It's like a ghost in the wires. Some say she's looking for her girls lost in a fire or something. Others say it's just a hoax. But it feels real. Mia's scissors paused. What do you do when it calls? The woman shrugged, her voice dropping. You hang up, or you play something back. A song, a scream, anything to break the loop. But if you answer too many times, it knows you. That night, the phone rang again. Mia stared at it, the hum filling the room. Against her better judgment, she answered. Hello? Hello, it's Christine. My daughters need the fade. Are you ready? The voice was closer, almost in the room, with a faint echo like from a long hallway. Mia's heart hammered. Who are you? Why do you keep calling? A pause, then a sigh, soft as a breath on glass. They need the fade. Tell them Mum's waiting. It's time to come home. Mia slammed the phone down, but the line didn't disconnect. The hum continued, the voice repeating, softer now. The fade, the fade, the fade. She yanked the cord from the wall, the silence sudden and heavy. But in the quiet, she swore she heard it. A child's giggle, distant from the bathroom down the hall. The calls stopped for a week, but Mia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Clients noticed her jumpy hands, her eyes darting to the phone. Jess suggested smashing it, but Mia kept it charged, half expecting, half dreading the ring. Then one evening as she closed the salon, the landline trilled. She froze, the shop empty, the blinds half drawn. The voicemail light blinked when she approached. She played it, the voice clearer, almost laughing. "Hello, it's Christine. My daughters need the fade. They're with you now." Mia spun, the shop silent. But in the mirror behind the counter, she saw them. Two small figures, their hair buzzed short, their eyes wide and empty, standing behind her. She screamed, the phone slipping from her hand, the line still humming. "Mum's waiting," they whispered in unison, their voices the same as Christine's. Mia ran, the door slamming behind her. The police found the salon empty the next day, the phone off the hook, the voicemail looping Christine's message. Mia was never seen again. But hairdressers across Sydney still get the call sometimes, a creepy voice asking for the fade. And if you listen close, you can hear the daughters giggling in the background, waiting for their turn. In a fog-choked Yorkshire village where rain lashed a crumbling English cottage, the White family, John, Mary, and their son Herbert, huddled by a flickering hearth. The storm howled, rattling window panes like restless spirits clawing to enter. Sergeant Morris, a gaunt friend from colonial campaigns, arrived, his eyes hollow, hands trembling as he drew a shriveled monkey's paw from his coat. Its gnarled fingers, etched with rune-like scars, pulsed faintly under the firelight. "It grants 3 wishes," he rasped, voice cracking, "but each destroys you." Over tea, Morris confessed his own ruin. His first wish for glory brought him wealth, but cost his comrades lives in a jungle ambush, their screams haunting his dreams. His second, for his wife's health, revived her, only for her to die in a horrific accident. Her spirit's angry, glowing red eyes, screaming his name nightly. "I can't use the last," he begged John, pressing the paw into his hands. "Burn it, or it'll bind me forever." John promised to destroy it, but his eyes lingered on the paw's warmth, ignoring Mary's shiver as the air soured with decay. Morris fled, warning, "Don't wish, or you're cursed like me." John promised to destroy it, but his eyes lingered on the paw's warmth, ignoring Mary's shiver as the air soured with decay. Morris fled, warning, "Don't wish, or you're cursed like me." Before heading to bed, Mary and Herbert pleaded with John to burn the paw, its shadow writhing on the wall like a clawing beast, but he tucked it away, unconvinced. Alone, John opened a forgotten letter, a debt collector's demand for payment, threatening to seize their home. The paw's warmth pulsed in his hand. "Just a test," he muttered, wishing for a cask of his favorite blackberry brandy to ease his nerves. The paw twitched, a low snarl echoing, and a cask appeared in the corner of the room, its scent rich but tinged with rot. John laughed, sipping the brandy, believing Morris's ruin was mere bad luck. By dawn, Mary and Herbert woke to horrors John didn't see. Mary's mirror fogged, reflecting an eyeless face with rune-like scars, whispering her name. Herbert heard footsteps pacing the attic, claw-like gouges appearing on his door. The air reeked of rotting fur, and the cottage's clocks ticked backward. They begged John to burn the paw, but he scoffed, emboldened by the brandy's arrival. Desperate to save their home, he wished for 200 pounds. The paw quaked, a guttural voice hissing, "You've bound me." The cottage shuddered, candles snuffed out, and shadows coiled into a hunched figure with glowing eyeless sockets, its claws scraping the floorboards, leaving charred trails. The next day, a solemn man knocked on the door, bringing grim news. Offering 200 pounds, Herbert had passed in a horrific accident at work, mangled in a factory machine, his screams swallowed by grinding gears. Mary's wails filled the cottage, the walls oozing tar-like sludge that smelled of death. Her grief turned feral. "Wish him back," she screamed, clawing at John. Against his better judgment, he wished again, the paw pulsing like a dying heart. That night, heavy knocks shook the door, slow and wet, each thud wrong, like footsteps through mud. Mary rushed to open it, but John saw a shadow, too tall, its limbs jerking, its face a twisted mockery of Herbert's, eyes glowing red. "It's not him," he whispered, as the thing scraped the wood, leaving gouges that bled black sap. The beams groaned, mirrors cracking with rune-like patterns. John seized the paw, throwing it in the fire. The knocking stopped, the door creaking open to reveal nothing but the wind. Alas, though, it was too late. The paw's curse had claimed its last victim as Mary's heart gave out, falling at John's feet. Shortly after the loss of his wife and son, John left the cottage and vanished, never to be seen or heard from again. Some say the paw still waits, luring the greedy to their downfall. The wishing bone tells of Kofi, a farmer in a drought-stricken Ghanaian village where dust swirled around withered crops. By a cracked riverbed, he found a polished bone, gleaming unnaturally, its surface etched with sigils that writhed like living veins. Bringing it back to the village, a wise old woman, her eyes smoldering like embers, warned, "It grants wishes, but it's a trickster spirit's trap, bound by an ancient priest's curse to devour hope." Kofi, desperate and curious, ignored her, clutching the bone under a starless sky. The air reeked of ash and decay, a whisper hissing his name like a serpent's call. He wished for wealth, and gold coins filled his hut, but the air grew heavy, the ground trembling. By dawn his crops blackened, their roots twisting into eyeless faces that seemed to watch him. Shadows danced, forming a gaunt figure with claw-like hands, its laughter echoing from the river. Kofi wished for thriving fields, and they bloomed, but his wife, Amma, fell ill, her skin marked with sigil-like scars, her breath fading as she whispered Kofi's name in terror. The village's wells dried, oozing black sludge that smelled of death. In panic, Kofi wished for her health, but the bone cracked, flames erupting from the earth, consuming his hut. Shadows swirled in the dark, the invisible claws scraping the burning walls, leaving singed sigils that pulsed even hotter and brighter than the flames. Kofi escaped the fire, but was unable to save his sick wife. Kofi rushed to the village elder, who revealed the spirit was a vengeful deity, angered by a priest's greed, its bone luring victims to feed its wrath. Kofi tried casting the bone into the river, but it resurfaced, its whispers now inside his dreams, the phantom claws clawing at his flesh. People began to flee the village and the curse that Kofi's greed had brought down on their village. Kofi was now alone, his cries lost in the bone's hiss. The riverbed was shunned, but some say the bone still gleams, luring the desperate in with the promise of a wish. In a crumbling Detroit neighborhood where streetlights flickered through fog lived Mara, a baker who kneaded dough in her little bakery. Local legend whispered of an old oven hidden away in her building, its iron door etched with faint scratches, cursed by an angry spirit. Mara, not prone to curiosity, dismissed the tales, her ovens her only muse. One rainy night she was cleaning the front of the bakery. As the city hummed with distant sirens, she heard a low wail from the kitchen, like a woman sobbing. The air reeked of charred bread and something fouler, burning despair. Compelled, she followed the sobs into the kitchen. Mara noticed a strange old oven that did not belong in her kitchen. Curious, she opened the oven, its door groaning, to find it cold yet glowing faintly, as if lit from within. A raspy voice whispered, "Look at what they did to me." The room quaked, the lights went out, and shadows swirled, forming a charred woman with hollow eyes, her hands clawing the air. Mara gasped and stepped back in horror as the charred woman shambled towards her with arms outstretched. "Look at what they did to me," she said yet again in a raspy wail, the walls seeming to quake once more at the force of the apparition's rage. Mara kept backing up as the charred woman got closer, till she felt the wall on her back. She took her eyes off the charred woman for only a second as she glanced around for an escape, but it was too late. The woman grabbed her, causing Mara to look at her dreadful face once more. Terrified, Mara tried to scream, but the burning stench and smoke choked her, making it impossible to scream. "Look at what they did to me!" she screamed in Mara's face. Mara coughed, trying to catch her breath as smoke filled her lungs and her flesh burned. The room seemed to shrink around her, till it was no bigger than that of the oven. Flames lashed at her, melting her skin. Mara screamed, begging to be let out. She could see figures standing outside the oven, laughing as she begged for freedom. As Mara's vision began to darken, she heard the charred woman's voice once more, barely an anguished whisper. Why did they do this to me? Suddenly the lights came on, and Mara was being shook awake. Mara, are you okay? Her sister asked, examining her for injuries. Mara looked around confused and scared. She lay on the floor of her bakery's kitchen. Her sister felt Mara's forehead. You're so pale and you're burning up. Let's get you upstairs to bed. You have overworked yourself to the point of being sick. Mara tried to tell her sister what had happened, but her throat was dry and cracked, making it hard to speak. So she let her sister guide her upstairs to their apartment above the bakery, noticing the cursed oven was no longer in the kitchen. By dawn, Mara's hands shook. Her dreams had been plagued by the figure's wail and the burning flames of the oven. She tried to return to work, but her loaves crumbled to ash, their crusts etched with claw-like marks, each time she tried to remove them from the oven. There was no peace for her now when she baked. Her sister and nephew, sharing the apartment, woke to find deep gouges in the walls and the air thick with a scorched stench. The oven's wail followed Mara, echoing from the walls, and shadows danced, mimicking the charred woman's form. One day, one of Mara's regular customers came into the bakery, an elderly man she had known for several years now. He regarded her carefully and then said in a hushed tone, "You've seen her." Mara's head whipped up quickly, eyes wide with shock. The elderly man told Mara about the baker who once ran this bakery when he was a boy, a sweet old lady who everyone loved. One night, a group of drifters came to town. They broke into the bakery, finding the old lady baking bread. They threw her into the oven with her loaves of bread. They watched as she begged for her freedom. They were never caught, and still to this day the old lady wails for a justice that will never come. Mara tried to keep the bakery going, but the hauntings tormented her and her family daily. One night it became so bad that Mara, her sister and nephew fled the building, leaving behind all of their belongings. They left the city never to return. The building fell into decay. The neighborhood again fell silent, but some say the oven still lingers, luring bakers to peer inside. The Domovoy's curse tells of Irina, a baker in a snowbound Siberian village, where her izba's stone hearth glowed faintly, its bricks etched with faint scratches. Locals spoke of the Domovoy, a household spirit guarding the home, turned malevolent when a family neglected its offerings, its wrath tied to a widow's death in the hearth. Irina, desperate to feed her son Yuri, ignored the warnings, stoking the hearth. One frozen night, as wolves howled, the flames flickered blue, the air thick with ash and frost-bitten flesh. A rasp whispered her name, cold as ice. Compelled, Irina peered into the hearth, and shadows formed the Domovoy, a small bearded figure with black eyes, its hands clawing the air, leaving singed scratches on the bricks. Irina's breath caught, tormented by the Domovoy's rasp and clawing hands. Her baking tools warped, their handles etched with scratches, and Yuri woke to scratching on his window. The hearth's hum followed Irina, its ashes swirling unbidden, shadows swaying like the Domovoy's form. Yuri found a scorched mark on his door, its edges curling like fingers. An elder spoke of the Domovoy's curse, sparked by a widow's death after her family's neglect, her spirit merging with the spirit to haunt the hearth. Irina offered bread to appease it, but the hearth flared, the izba's walls creaking with frost. Yuri's screams woke her, claiming a voice rasped from the chimney. Desperate, Irina doused the hearth, but flames surged, the Domovoy's rasp echoing. Irina and Yuri fled, their cries lost in the blizzard as the izba burned. The village shunned the sight, but some say the hearth still glows, luring the unwary to peer inside. Kuchisake Ona's hearth tells of Aiko, a cook in a Tokyo tenement, where a rusted stove glowed faintly, its surface scratched with jagged marks. Locals whispered of Kuchisake Onna, a woman whose mouth was slashed by her jealous husband, her spirit haunting kitchens after burning his possessions in a stove. Aiko, cooking for her daughter Chiyo, dismissed the tales. One rainy night, as neon buzzed outside, she lit the stove, its flames flickering green, the air thick with burnt silk and blood. A hiss whispered, "Am I pretty?" Compelled, Aiko peered closer, and a figure emerged, a woman in a tattered kimono, her mask falling to reveal a mouth slashed ear to ear, her eyes gleaming white. Aiko froze, stammering, "Yes," her voice trembling. The figure hissed, "Even now," and lunged, her claws grazing Aiko's cheek, leaving a burning mark. Aiko stumbled back, scattering salt to ward her off, but the stove flared, shadows writhing like the woman's grin. Chiyo screamed, seeing the figure in the kitchen doorway, her slashed mouth dripping in the neon light. Aiko grabbed Chiyo and fled to the crowded street, the hiss trailing them, mirrors in the tenement fogging with grinning faces, their mouths bleeding faintly. At dawn, Aiko and Chiyo returned, scared but determined to reclaim their home. Upon entering, they saw pots warped, scratched with jagged marks and scorched marks on the walls, the edges curling like a smile. A neighbor spoke of Kuchisake Onna's curse, tied to a fiery rage, luring cooks to answer her question. Aiko boarded up the kitchen, but the stove's hum persisted, the tenement's walls creaking with heat. Chiyo's screams woke Aiko nightly, claiming a woman hissed from the mirrors. Aiko and Chiyo fled the city, their cries lost in the neon buzz, but some say Kuchisake Onna's stove still glows, hissing for those who answer. In a remote West Virginia holler, where ancient pines loomed over mist-shrouded trails, Hannah, a dedicated midwife, tended to the sick with her basket of remedies. One evening, after soothing a fevered woman in a secluded cabin, Hannah trekked home through the darkening forest, her lantern casting jittery shadows. The air grew thick, the trees hunching closer, their branches creaking like whispered warnings. Suddenly, a child's sob cut through the silence, raw, desperate, echoing from deep within the woods. Hannah's heart clenched. As a midwife, she couldn't ignore a child in distress. "Someone's hurt," she murmured, her voice quivering as she veered off the path, the cries tugging her like a spectral lure. The sobs led her to a clearing where an old stone well crouched, its rim choked with vines, as if the forest sought to hide it. The cries wailed from below, piercing and heartbroken. Hannah leaned over, her lantern's glow barely penetrating the inky depths, revealing a small boy huddled at the bottom, no more than 4 or 5, his face buried in his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "Hold on, little one. Are you injured? I'm coming to get you," she called, her voice steady despite the dread knotting her stomach. The boy looked up, his eyes wide with terror, pleading in his soft little child's voice. "Help me, please. It's dark. It hurts." Frantic, Hannah scoured the clearing for anything to aid her rescue. A rope, a vine, anything. Thorns snagged her skin as she tore through bushes, her lantern's light flickering wildly, casting shadows that seemed to writhe mockingly. Minutes dragged like hours, her hope dwindling as she found only rocks and roots. "There has to be something," she whispered, her breath ragged, the boy's sobs growing more urgent, clawing at her soul. "Please hurry, I can't hold on," he cried, his tiny voice breaking with pain. Suddenly something caught her eye, a rope coiled under a bush, its end frayed but strong. "Thank heavens," Hannah breathed, tying it to a gnarled tree, testing its hold. Praying it was long enough, she descended into the well, the rope groaning under her weight. The walls oozed with moss, cold and slick, and the lantern's light above faded unnaturally, as if the darkness was devouring it. "The well's growing deeper," Hannah gasped, her arms aching, the rope stretching impossibly, the boy's whimpers turning to eerie hums. The air grew colder, the walls pulsing like a heartbeat, the cries now a low, guttural chant. Her feet hit the bottom, the ground soft and wrong, like stepping on flesh. "It's okay, I'm here," Hannah said, reaching out. The boy's head snapped up, his eyes pitch black, a wicked smile revealing sharp, needle-like teeth. In a demonic voice, chilling and not childlike, he hissed happily. "You found me!" Hannah's blood froze as he added, "Now we can play forever." She spun toward the rope. It was gone, dissolved into the dark. The lantern above snuffed out, plunging her into blackness. The well's walls tightened. The boys' laughter, a jagged screech as Hannah's screams of agony tore through the void, fading until the forest fell silent. Searchers scoured the woods, finding only Hannah's basket of remedies and her shattered lantern. The well had vanished, as if the earth had swallowed it. No one saw Hannah again, and in West Virginia they whisper, "If you saw it, no you didn't. If you heard it, no you didn't. If something's chasing you, walk, don't run." The Tianak's cry tells of Lita, a healer in a Luzon village, walking a moonlit path through rice fields. A baby's wail sliced the night, sharp and pleading, drifting from a banana grove. Lita, her heart stirred, followed, her bag of herbs swinging. The cries grew louder, leading her to a clearing where a swaddled infant lay under a banana tree, its sobs frail and pitiful. "Poor thing," Lita whispered, kneeling to check for injuries, her lantern casting a trembling glow. The air turned sour, heavy with the stench of rotting fruit, the grove's shadows curling like claws. As Lita reached out, the infant's eyes snapped open, red as embers, its mouth splitting into a fanged grin. In a guttural snarl it hissed, "You came!" Lita stumbled back, her lantern toppling as the creature swelled, its limbs twisting into clawed, sinewy arms. She screamed, running, but the Tianak's laughter chased her, its cries mimicking hers, weaving through the fields. The grove fell silent, and Lita was never seen again. Villagers found only her bag of herbs, tangled in roots, and spoke of the Tianak, a demon mimicking a lost child to lure the compassionate, claiming them in the dark. Some say the banana grove still wails, waiting for its next guest. The Curupira's call tells of João, a hunter in an Amazonian village, tracking game through dense rainforest. A child's cry broke the jungle's hum, high and frantic, echoing from a tangled clearing. João, hardened but kind, followed, his machete at his side. The cries led him deeper, the trees closing in, their roots twisting like veins underfoot. In a clearing, a small figure huddled by a stream, sobbing softly. "Are you lost?" João called, stepping closer, his torch flickering as the air grew thick with damp earth and decay. The figure turned, its eyes glowing green, its feet backward, toes pointing behind. In a distorted, childlike voice it giggled, "Follow me." João froze, the jungle shifting, paths vanishing, the cries now a mocking chant. He ran, vines snagging his legs, the Curupira's laughter weaving through the canopy. Hours later he staggered into the village, his torch gone, his face gaunt, muttering of endless paths. Elders spoke of the Curupira, a forest spirit with backward feet, luring intruders with childlike cries to trap them in the jungle's maze. João never hunted again, and some say the rainforest still echoes with cries, calling wanderers to lose their way. The Pichol Peri's lure tells of Arjun, a trader crossing a Himalayan trail at dusk. A faint cry, a woman's drifted from the misty pines, sharp with despair. Arjun, weary but compassionate, followed, his lantern swaying. The cries led to a rocky outcrop where a cloaked woman stood, her back to him, sobbing softly. "Who's there?" Arjun called, his voice swallowed by the fog. The air chilled, reeking of wet stone and something sour, the pines bending as if watching. The woman turned, her face pale, her feet backward, her eyes hollow voids. In a voice like cracking ice, she whispered, "Help me." Arjun's heart raced as she drifted closer, her cries morphing into a shrill wail. He backed away, the trail twisting, rocks shifting underfoot. Her wail grew louder, and Arjun's screams vanished into the mist. Searchers found only his lantern, cracked on the rocks, and spoke of the Pichol Peri, a ghostly woman luring travelers with cries to their oblivion. The Himalayan trails still carry her wails, seeking the next soul to claim. In a foggy New England town, where the sea's breath clung to cobblestone streets, Emma, an antique dealer, sifted through forgotten relics in her creaky shop. Locals whispered of a cursed mirror in an old estate, its glass showing faces not your own. luring the curious to their doom. Emma, her curiosity a restless flame, found the tales intriguing, drawn to the thrill of uncovering history. One stormy afternoon, at an estate sale in a decrepit old mansion, she found it. An ornate mirror, its silver frame tarnished, its surface cloudy yet pulsing with a strange inner light. The air around it thickened, heavy with dust and a sour whiff of decay, like an opened crypt. Ignoring the seller's trembling hands, Emma bought it, her pulse quickening as she hauled it to her shop. That night, as thunder rattled her windows, Emma hung the mirror in her bedroom, its reflection catching candlelight in warped, liquid-like ripples. Brushing her hair, she froze. A figure flickered in the glass, not hers, with pale skin and hollow sockets where eyes should be. Her breath caught, the room chilling, the candle's flame twisting as if pinched by unseen fingers. She blinked, and the figure vanished, but a faint whisper slithered from the mirror. "See me." Her skin prickled as if icy nails grazed her neck. Emma stepped back, heart hammering, the glass seeming to pulse, its cracks spreading like spider webs. She covered it with a cloth, but the whisper persisted, curling through the dark. "Look again." By morning, the air in her shop felt wrong, heavy with a cloying rot that clung to her throat. The mirror's cloth had fallen, its surface fogged, showing fleeting glimpses of the eyeless figure, its mouth stretched in a silent wail. Emma's curiosity battled her fear. She peered closer, the glass rippling, the figure's hands pressing against it, leaving smears that bled black. Whispers grew louder, her name hissed from corners of the room, the walls creaking as if bending inward. At night, her dreams trapped her in a mirrored void, the figure's hollow gaze pulling her deeper, its voice cooing, "Join me." Her husband Tom and their daughter Ellie heard the whispers too, waking to scratches on their doors and the doorknob turning slowly. Ellie woke each night sobbing, dreaming of a faceless woman beckoning from reflection. The mirror's frame oozed a dark, tar-like sludge, staining the floor, and other mirrors in the house fogged, showing a fractured, eyeless face. Desperate, Emma sought a local historian, who spoke of a widow betrayed by her lover, her soul bound to the mirror after she drowned herself in despair, luring others to share her eternal dark. Emma tried smashing the mirror, but the shards quivered, reforming, the figure's voice hissing, "You're mine." The shop's walls groaned, shadows twisting into clawing shapes. Tom and Ellie fled, begging Emma to come with them, but she couldn't bring herself to give up their home and shop. Now alone, Emma's cries went unheard, drowned out by the whispers as the building shuddered. Emma's final scream echoed, then silenced, as she was pulled into the mirror's depths. When Tom returned for Emma, he found only her tools, scattered among shards that reflected no one. The town shunned the sight, but some say the mirror still stands, its glass calling the curious to gaze. The Yurei's reflection tells of Akemi, a seamstress in a Kyoto village, finding a lacquered mirror in a shrine storeroom. Its glass gleamed unnaturally, the air around it sharp with the scent of wilted cherry blossoms. At night, as crickets fell silent, Akemi gazed into it, seeing a woman's face, pale, with long black hair and bleeding eyes, staring back. The figure whispered, "Am I whole?" in a voice like rustling silk, the room chilling, the mirror's surface rippling like a pond. Akemi's fear grew as the Yurei's face appeared in every reflective surface, windows, water, its voice pleading, then snarling, "Stay with me." Her needles bent, threads knotting into nooses, and her dreams trapped her in a mirrored maze, the Yurei's hands clawing at her reflection. A priest spoke of a betrayed wife, her spirit bound to the mirror, seeking souls to replace her pain. Akemi tried burning the mirror, but its glass glowed, the Yurei's wail shaking the walls. One dark night, as her village slept peacefully, Akemi vanished, her screams swallowed by the mirror, leaving only her scissors tangled in black hair. Villagers say the shrine's mirrors still show her face, waiting for a release that will never come. The Spiegelgeist's trap tells of Klaus, a woodcutter in a black forest cabin, finding a dusty mirror in an abandoned mill. Its glass pulsed with a faint glow, the air thick with pine and rot. At night, as wolves howled, Klaus saw a shadowy figure in the mirror, its face blurred, its voice a low rasp. "Look closer." The cabin chilled, the mirror's frame creaking as if alive. Klaus's fear mounted as the figure appeared in every reflection. Buckets, axes, its rasp growing into a growl. "Stay." His tools rusted overnight, the cabin's walls splintering, and his dog whimpered, staring at unseen shapes. Klaus went to the village elder, who spoke of a Spiegelgeist, a spirit bound to mirrors, stealing souls to escape its prison. Klaus tried shattering the mirror, but its pieces writhed, pulling itself back together, the spirit's growl shaking the floor. One night Klaus disappeared. Some say he fled into the night, leaving only his axe behind, etched with claw marks. But others say his screams echo in mirrors, trapped for all eternity. The mill is shunned now, but some say its mirrors still glow, whispering for the next soul. In North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains, where fog draped the pines like a shroud, Sarah, a hiker, trekked the trails near Brown Mountain, her flashlight slicing through the twilight. Locals spoke of the Brown Mountain lights, ghostly orbs tied to a murdered woman, her lantern searching for her killer, luring wanderers to their doom. Sarah, a skeptic with a passion for local legends, scoffed at the tales, her curiosity pulling her toward the ridge's mysteries. One autumn evening, as stars vanished behind a creeping mist, she spotted a flickering light, pale, pulsing, hovering low among the trees. The air thickened, heavy with wet stone and a sour decay, like an opened crypt. Her pulse quickened, but she stepped closer, drawn to the orb's eerie glow. The light bobbed ahead, weaving through the pines, its hum low and mournful, like a woman's sob. Sarah's flashlight flickered, its beam swallowed by a ghostly fog that rolled in, thick and cold, curling around her like fingers. "Who's there?" she called, her voice trembling, the hum swelling into a whisper. "Find me." Her skin prickled as the orb flared, revealing a figure, a woman in a tattered dress, her face pale, eyes hollow, clutching a lantern that pulsed with sickly yellow light. "No," Sarah gasped, her heart lurching as she turned and ran, the woman's voice hissing, "You can't escape." The fog tightened, trees twisting into gnarled shapes, the trail vanishing as the lantern's glow chased her, its hum now a keening wail. Sarah's boots pounded the earth, branches snagging her clothes, the fog so dense she could barely see her hands. Her breath came in ragged gasps, the air icing her lungs. The woman's figure flickering closer in the mist, her lantern casting shadows that clawed at the trees. Sarah stumbled into a clearing, heart pounding, thinking she'd lost the spirit, until the glow reappeared, brighter, the woman's hollow eyes locking onto hers, whispering, "Stay with me." Sarah bolted again, the fog swirling, paths dissolving, the lantern's light relentless, driving her deeper into the forest. Each time she paused, gasping, hoping to find the trail, the orb flared nearby, the woman's wail echoing, "You're mine." Panic clawed at her chest, her legs burning, the forest a maze of twisting roots and suffocating mist. Exhausted, Sarah's foot caught on a gnarled root, her ankle twisting with a sickening crunch. She collapsed, pain shooting through her leg, unable to stand. The fog parted and the woman loomed, her lantern's glow bathing Sarah in cold yellow light, her hollow eyes gleaming with malice. In a voice like cracking ice, she hissed, "Now you'll join me." Sarah screamed, her voice swallowed by the fog, the woman's lantern flaring until it consumed the night. Her cries faded, the forest falling silent as the grave, only to stir again with the chirp of crickets and rustle of leaves. A search party scoured the ridge, finding no trace of Sarah, not even her flashlight, as if the mountain had claimed her. The brown mountain lights still flicker, their glow calling wanderers to vanish. The Lantern Man's lure tells of Edward, a fisherman in Norfolk's fens, trudging through the marshes at twilight. A pale light flickered ahead, pulsing unnaturally, its glow cold yet beckoning, the air thick with damp reeds and rotting fish. Edward, weary but gripped by an urge to follow, stepped closer, his boots sinking into the mire, the light weaving deeper into the fens. The marshes whispered, reeds hissing like breath, the air chilling as his own lantern dimmed, its flame no match for the eerie glow. Heart pounding, an inescapable urge pushed him forward, moving ever deeper into the marsh. Edward pushed through the fog, catching up to the light, only to face a tall, shadowy figure, its skeletal form clutching a glowing lantern, hollow eyes glinting like wet stones, silent and menacing. Edward gasped, turning to run, but the lantern man followed, its light relentless, driving him deeper into the twisting marshes. The ground grew softer, sucking at his feet, the fog coiling like a noose, the figure's silent pursuit closing in. Each time Edward paused, lungs burning, the light flared closer, the lantern man's hollow gaze fixed, its lantern casting shadows that clawed at the reeds. Panic consumed him, the paths gone, the marshes a maze of sinking pools. His boots sank deeper, the mire swallowing his legs, and as the lantern man loomed, its light blinding, Edward's screams sank into the bog, swallowed by quicksand. The next morning, fishermen searching for their friend found only his cap, bobbing in a murky pool. The fen's lantern still sways, luring the unwary to their doom. In a tangled New England forest, where moonlight barely pierced gnarled oaks, Jenny, a botanist, cataloged rare mosses, her notebook filled with sketches and dreams of discovery. Locals warned of the whispering shadows, dark forms that slunk through the trees, their voices luring wanderers deeper into the forest, never to be heard from again. Jenny, a skeptic with a scientist's heart, dismissed the tales as folklore, her passion for the forest's secrets outweighing warnings. One foggy dusk, as the air thickened with damp moss and a sour tang like rotting leaves, she heard it, a faint murmur, Jenny slithering from the dark. Her pulse quickened, curiosity battling unease, but she stepped deeper, drawn to the unseen call. The whispers grew, weaving through the branches like a chilling breeze, shadows stretching into shapes with no source, their edges jagged as claws. Jenny's flashlight flickered, its beam swallowed by a creeping fog that clung like damp silk. The murmurs became voices, hissing, "Jenny, come here," the air icing her skin. She glimpsed a shadow, tall, eyeless, its form rippling like spilled ink, its presence heavy with malice. Her heart pounded, and she ran, boots sinking into muddy earth, the whispers chasing her, their hiss venomous. "Stay with us." The forest warped, paths dissolving, fog coiling like a serpent. She ducked under low branches, their tips grazing her scalp, her breath ragged as the shadows flickered closer, their void-like eyes glinting in the mist. Each time she paused, lungs burning, the whispers surged. "Stay," the shadow's forms pulsing, clawing at the air. A thorn tore her sleeve, blood beating on her arm, and she stumbled into a clearing, hoping for escape, only to find the shadows waiting, their murmurs a low growl. "Join us." Jenny sprinted again, the forest a maze of twisted roots and suffocating fog, the whispers now a deafening roar. A root snagged her boot, sending her sprawling, pain searing her wrist and ankle. She clawed at the dirt, pushing herself back up, ready to run. But as Jenny looked around, she started to realize she was impossibly lost. Jenny could hear the whispers still coming towards her. In that moment, all hope of escape was ripped from her. As she sank to the ground, broken and defeated, the shadows encircled her, their eyes like black voids, their murmurs choking. "Join us!" Jenny's scream dissolved into the fog, the forest falling silent as a crypt, only to stir again with distant owl hoots. Searchers found only her notebook, its pages torn, scattered among gnarled roots, as if the woods had claimed her. The whispering shadows still murmur, luring wanderers into the dark. The Schottenwesen's call tells of Carl, a woodcutter in the Black Forest, hauling logs at twilight. The sun sank, casting long shadows that stretched unnaturally, the air thick with pine sap and a rancid decay, like earth disturbed after centuries. A low whisper hissed from the pines. "Carl, help me!" Soft as leaves brushing bark but piercing, tugging at his mind. Carl, weary from his labor but stirred by the voice that knew his name, paused, his axe heavy, his lantern casting a frail glow. The forest felt alive, its silence too deep, and a chill crept up his spine. Yet curiosity pulled him deeper, his boots crunching on frost-kissed needles, the whispers urging him into the gloom. The murmurs grew, weaving through the trees like a venomous wind, shadows shifting into shapes with no source, their edges jagged, claw-like, hungry. Carl's lantern flickered, its flame twisting as if strangled, the beam swallowed by a creeping fog that clung to his skin like icy fingers. The whisper sharpened, hissing, "Carl, follow me," the air freezing his breath. The forest bending, pines tilting as if bowing to a hidden force. His heart thudded, doubt gnawing. Had he misheard the wind? But the voice swelled, a chorus now. "Carl, you found me," and he glimpsed a Schattenwesen, gaunt, eyeless, its form a rippling mass of darkness, towering over the underbrush, its presence a weight of malice. Panic surged, and Carl ran, his axe clattering to the ground, the whisper chasing, its hiss venomous. "Stay with me." The forest warped, paths dissolving into fog, roots snaking like traps across his way. Carl's breath came in ragged gasps, the fog thickening, coiling like a serpent, the Schattenwesen's shadow gliding closer, its void-like eyes glinting in the mist. He ducked under branches, their tips raking his scalp, drawing thin beads of blood that stung in the cold. Each pause to catch his breath brought the murmur louder. "Stay!" its tone a deafening growl. "You belong here." A thorn bush tore his sleeve, the pain sharp, and he stumbled into a glade, heart pounding, hoping for escape, only to find more shadows waiting, their forms pulsing, clawing at the air. Carl sprinted again, the forest a labyrinth of twisted trunks, the whispers a suffocating roar. His foot caught a root, sending him sprawling, pain flaring in his leg as the ground seemed to quake beneath him. He clawed to his feet, but the Schattenwesen loomed, its eyes black voids, its form coiling like smoke, whispers choking, "Stay." Carl's cries faded into the mist, the forest falling silent until wolves howled. Searchers found only Carl's axe and his jacket, tangled in brambles, as if the black forest had swallowed him whole. The shadows still whisper, calling wanderers to follow them into oblivion. In Tennessee's Appalachian hills, where wind howled through jagged cliffs, Avery, a geologist, charted ancient strata, her journal brimming with sketches of forgotten rocks. Locals spoke in hushed tones of the crying stone, a mossy boulder said to weep for Ayoka, a Cherokee woman betrayed, her screams sealed in stone after her lover left her to die. Avery, skeptical but intrigued by the lore, trekked through the rugged hills, her boots crunching on frost-kissed leaves. She found the boulder, its surface slick with water that pulsed faintly, as if alive. As her fingers brushed its mossy face, a sharp chill stabbed her hand, like touching a frozen blade, and a low wail moaned, "Why, Avery? Why?" her name twisting in the sound. Her breath caught, curiosity warring with a creeping unease. But the stone sorrow held her fast, urging her to linger. The air grew heavy with damp earth and a sour tang of grief, the wail swelling into a keening cry, "Free me!" Avery's heart pounded, the stone's water turning crimson, dripping like fresh blood onto the cliffside. The wind howled louder, carrying Ahyoka's voice. "You know my pain," and the cliff seemed to shudder, pebbles skittering like whispers. Avery tried to step back, but her boots sank into the muddy earth, as if the ground itself refused to release her. Her pulse raced, the wail now a scream piercing her skull, echoing through the hills. She ran, branches raking her arms, leaving stinging scratches that burned in the cold. The path twisted unnaturally, cliffs looming closer, their jagged edges like teeth, the air thick with despair. Avery's chest tightened, each breath a struggle against the weight of sorrow, as Ahyoka's whisper hissed, "Don't leave me." She stumbled into a hollow, the crying stone looming nearby, its crimson tears pooling in a scarlet ring, the ground trembling beneath her feet. Panic flared as Avery realized she was back at the stone she had been trying to flee from. Darkness encircled Avery as a deafening scream came from the shadows. "You can't leave." A spectral hand, cold as death, grazed her shoulder, draining her strength, and the wail seemed to pull at her soul. Avery's cries merged with the stones as the shadows claimed her. The wind fell silent, save for the boulder's mournful moan. Searchers found only her journal, pages soaked crimson beside the crying stone, its wails still echoing the unending betrayal of Ahioka. In Ireland's Connemara Hills, where gales swept across barren moors, Sean, a farmer, tended sheep near a granite boulder called the Weeping Rock, said to cry for Sheoban, a widow killed in 1847 during the famine, her desperate pleas for aid ignored by passers-by. Sean, practical but drawn to old tales, approached the stone under a darkening sky, its surface slick with water that seemed to shimmer. His fingers brushed it, and a burn like frostbite seared his hand. A low wail rising. "Help me, Sean," the air thick with peat and a bitter sting of despair. His heart raced, the stone's cry weaving into his thoughts, urging him to stay, though a chill coiled deep in his gut, warning him to flee. The wail sharpened, curling through the hills like a banshee's lament, the stone's water darkening to crimson, pulsing like an open wound. Sheoban's whisper hissed, "You ignored me," the gale turning bitter, stinging his face like needles. Sean's hands trembled, the stone's cold sinking into his chest, its surface throbbing as if it breathed. He backed away, but the moor shifted, paths vanishing under his feet, the wail swelling to a scream. "You ignored me!" He tried to run, his boots sinking in boggy earth, thorns tearing at his legs, their sting sharp and relentless, drawing beads of blood. Unable to move, Sean cried out for help. The hills seemed to close in, the weeping rock looming through the gale, its crimson tears dripping into the peat, the ground quaking. Sean's breath came in ragged gasps, the air choking with sorrow, Sheoban's voice keening, "You will never leave me." Sean could feel himself being pulled into the earth. He struggled to get free, but to no avail. The stone screamed deafening, its pulse shaking the moor. A cold hand grazed his neck, sapping his strength, the wail pulling at his very soul. Sean's cries were swallowed by the wind, his body sinking claimed by the bog, his vision fading to crimson. The hills fell silent, save for the stone's mournful cry. Searchers found only his cap, half buried in peat near the weeping rock, its wails still calling Sheoban's unending sorrow. In a decaying Virginia manor, where ivy strangled crumbling walls like veins, Abigail, a historian, explored forgotten chambers, her notebook brimming with tales of the Old South. Lured by local tales of the Red Room sealed since 1860, tied to Charlotte, a plantation heiress whose husband's betrayal cost her her life, her blood staining the walls crimson. Abigail's curiosity, outweighing the warnings, brought her to the decrepit old manor. Searching each room meticulously, keeping note of her findings along the way, eventually found the door, its paint peeling like scabs, the air heavy with dust. She turned the rusted key that was in the lock, her fingers trembling, a sour stench hit her, iron, rot, and something alive, choking her lungs. The crimson walls glowed faintly, pulsing like a dying heart, and a low moan sighed. "Abigail, you've come," the voice curling around her name. Her pulse raced, but the room's pull held her, as if it knew her. The moan deepened, weaving through the air like a dirge, the walls seeping bloody streaks that dripped to the warped floorboards. Abigail's flashlight flickered, its beam swallowed by the thickening air, the stench burning her throat raw. A silhouette flickered in the corner. Charlotte, her dress tattered, eyes tearful, her presence heavy with grief. Abigail's heart hammered, and she lunged for the door, but it slammed shut with a bone-rattling thud, the lock jamming. The moan swelled to a wail. "Don't leave me, Abigail!" Charlotte's voice whispered through the walls, sharp as a blade. Abigail pounded the door, splinters biting her palms, the pain sharp but fleeting against the room's growing pulse, her cries for help going unanswered. The walls seemed to breathe, inching closer, the crimson glow searing her eyes. She stumbled to a window, its glass icy and unyielding. The wail now a scream. Stay. Charlotte's silhouette loomed, her cold dead hands reaching, the air choking with death and despair. Abigail's chest tightened, each breath a struggle, the room's glow blinding. The scream pierced the room. Stay with me forever, Charlotte whispered as her icy fingers grazed Abigail's neck, draining her strength. Abigail's cries faded, her body sinking as if the floor swallowed her, the room claiming her soul. The manor fell silent, save for a faint moan behind the sealed door. Searchers found only her notebook, pages stained crimson, outside the red room, its walls still pulsing with Charlotte's unending wrath. The Red Chamber's curse tells of Hiroshi, an architect, inspecting a derelict temple, its red chamber sealed for longer than anyone could remember, linked to the legend of Akiko, a samurai's wife killed for infidelity, her blood cursing the room. Hiroshi, drawn to its history, pried open the crimson door under a flickering lantern, the air sour with ink and decay, the walls shimmering red, pulsing like an open wound. A low sob echoed, Hiroshi, the sound coiling around him like a noose. His skin prickled, his breath catching, but he stepped inside, the chamber's pull inescapable. The sob sharpened, slicing through the silence like a katana, the walls dripping crimson streaks that pooled on the stone floor. Hiroshi's lantern dimmed, the air heavy with grief. Akiko's whisper hissing, "You see my shame." The door slammed shut, the lock clicking with a final snap, trapping him in darkness. His hands shook, clawing at the wood, splinters piercing his fingers, the pain a fleeting sting against the scream swelling, "You are mine." The room seemed to shrink, walls pressing in, the crimson glow searing his vision. Hiroshi stumbled to a shrine, its altar stained red, the air choking with sorrow, Akiko's voice keening, "Feel my wrath." He stumbled back to the door, pounded on it again, his hands raw but it held fast, the scream piercing his skull. "You will join me." Akiko's silhouette emerged, pale, tattered, her hands reaching, cold as frost. The walls pulsed faster, the glow blinding, and Hiroshi's chest tightened, his strength ebbing as Akiko's icy touch gripped his heart. His cries were swallowed by the chamber's wail, his body vanishing as Akiko claimed him. The temple fell silent, save for a faint sob behind the sealed door. Searchers found no trace of Hiroshi, but the red chamber waits, its walls still whispering Akiko's wrath, daring those foolish enough to enter. In the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, where mist clung to gnarled pines, Eleanor, a folklorist, hunted old tales, her recorder filled with whispers of lost souls. Locals spoke of the Wailing Hollow, a sunken valley cursed since 1875, when a settler named Hannah was abandoned by her family, her cries for help swallowed by the wind. Eleanor, intrigued by the legend, ventured into the hollow, her boots sinking in damp loam, the air sharp with pine and decay. As dusk fell, a low wail rose. "Eleanor, come!" the sound weaving through the trees, her name a chilling echo. Her heart skipped, but curiosity drove her deeper, the valley's pull tightening. The wail grew, curling like smoke, the air heavy with a sour chill that stung her skin. Eleanor's recorder crackled, capturing only static as the wind howled, "Find you." The trees seemed to lean closer, their branches clawing at her coat and hands, leaving thin scratches. She pressed on, curiosity driving her forward, ignoring the building dread in her gut, the wail sharpening to a scream, Hannah's voice pleading, "Can you feel my pain?" The dread in Eleanor's gut had become too much for her to ignore, and she attempted to turn back, but the ground softened, sucking at her boots, as if the hollow resisted her escape. Eleanor's breath quickened, her flashlight flickering, the beam catching a pale figure. Hannah, her eyes hollow, hands outstretched, the scream pierced, "Stay with me!" and the wind surged, knocking Eleanor to her knees, pain flaring. She pushed herself up, the valley trembling, the air thick with despair. The figure loomed closer, its touch icy, draining her strength, the wail deafening, "Join me!" Eleanor's cries merged with the wind, The hollow fell silent, save for a faint sob. A search team found only her recorder, its tape warped with a single, endless scream. Deep in the wailing hollow, its winds still carrying Hannah's sorrow. The Cowinig's Glen tells of Fiona, a botanist, studying flora in a desolate glen, its winds said to carry the wail of Morag, a crofter's wife left to die in 1746 during the Jacobite purges, her pleas lost to the gale. Fiona, skeptical, dismissed the local lore, hiking into the glen, her pack heavy, the air bitter with heather and ash. The further into the glen she got, the more the atmosphere changed, becoming more ominous with each step. Fiona ignored the growing warning in the pit of her stomach and pushed forward. A low wail rose in the wind. Fiona. The sound slithering through the rocks, her name a ghostly call. Her pulse raced, but she pressed on, the glen's pull undeniable. The wail sharpened, weaving through the air like a blade, the wind stinging her face with icy grit. Fiona's camera glitched, its screen flickering as Morag's voice hissed, "Follow me, Fiona." The rocks seemed to shift, narrowing the path. Fiona could no longer ignore the warning she felt inside her. She ran, the wail swelling to a scream. "Stay with me!" The ground quaking underfoot. Fiona's breath caught, her flashlight dimming, catching a pale figure. Morag, her face gaunt, her limbs gnarled and twisted. Her wrathful screams and the wind roaring pierced Fiona's ears, the pressure in her head becoming unbearable. She staggered, the glen closing in, the air choking with grief. Morag's icy touch grazed her back, sapping her strength, the wail deafening. Fiona's cries faded, her body falling limp as her heart gave out. The glen fell silent, save for a faint wail. Searchers found only her camera, its lens cracked in the Cowinig's Glen, its winds still echoing Morag's wrath. In Chicago's Archer Avenue, where streetlights flickered near Resurrection Cemetery, Daniel, a cab driver in his late 30s, cruised through the night, his radio humming old jazz. Born and raised in the city's south side, he'd grown up hearing ghost stories from his uncle, a retired cabbie who swore he'd once seen Resurrection Mary, a spectral woman haunting the cemetery since the 1930s, her voice calling names to lure drivers into a deadly dance. Daniel, skeptical but nostalgic for his uncle's tales, had taken to driving the Archer Avenue route on slow nights, half hoping to glimpse the legend. One chilly October evening, as he passed the cemetery's iron gates, the air grew heavy with frost and the faint scent of old roses, his uncle's warnings echoing in his mind. As midnight struck, a soft voice whispered, "Daniel," from the back seat, its tone sweet yet chilling, like a song from a forgotten ballroom. His heart jolted, but he glanced back, seeing nothing, yet curiosity and a flicker of childhood wonder kept him driving toward the gates. The voice grew, melodic like a waltz, the air chilling as if the night held its breath. Daniel's radio cut to static, the whisper repeating, "Dance with me." Streetlights dimmed, shadows swaying like ghostly figures. He pulled over, his hands trembling, the voice now clear. "Daniel, come." A pale woman appeared, Mary, in a white dress, her eyes hollow, beckoning. He stepped out, drawn to her, the air thick with despair. She took his hand, her touch icy, and they danced, the graveyard gates creaking open. The waltz swelled, Mary's voice singing, "Stay," her grip tightening, pain prickling his chest. Daniel's steps faltered, the ground softening beneath him, as if the earth pulled him down. Her voice whispered, "Forever," and the gates slammed shut, his screams fading. The road fell silent, save for a faint hum. Morning drivers found only his cab, doors open, a single rose on the seat, outside Resurrection Cemetery, its gates still whispering Mary's call. In Guatemalan folklore, a chilling tale haunts the villages. El Sombreron's Lure tells of Maria, a young weaver in her 20s from a rural Guatemalan town, known for her long, flowing hair that caught the eye of many. She'd heard tales from her grandmother about El Sombreron, a small man in a big black hat who rode a mule and played a silver guitar, luring women with beautiful hair to his side with his enchanting voice and music. haunting them with braids and sleepless nights until they wasted away. Maria, proud of her heritage but dismissing the stories as old wives' tales, walked home from the market one evening, her hair swaying in the breeze, the air thick with jasmine and earth. As twilight fell, a soft guitar melody floated from the shadows, and a voice sang, "Maria, dance with me," its tone sweet yet sinister, her name woven into the tune. Her heart fluttered, but she quickened her pace, the melody following, pulling at her like an invisible thread. The song grew, its notes wrapping around her, the air chilling as if the night breathed. Maria's basket felt heavier, the voice singing, "Maria, stay with me." The path dimmed, shadows swaying to the rhythm. She glanced back, her hands trembling, the voice now clear. "Maria, my sweet, come to me." A small figure appeared, El Sombrero in his black hat, strumming his silver guitar, his eyes gleaming, beckoning. She dropped her basket, drawn to him, the air thick with despair. He took her hand, his touch icy, and they danced, the guitar's melody swelling. Something in Maria stirred, her grandmother's warnings coming back to her in a rush. Maria let out a scream, pulling herself from El Sombrero's embrace. She fled down the darkened streets. Maria made it home, slamming the door, but the melody clung, echoing in her ears. That night, she tossed in bed, unable to sleep, the voice humming relentlessly, "Maria, you are mine." By morning, her breakfast tasted of dirt, inedible. The days blurred, the guitar's strum returning each dusk, louder in a symphony only Maria could hear, El Sombrero's voice whispering, "Maria, you are mine, forever." She woke one night to find her hair tightly braided, pain prickling her scalp, the braids unyielding to her trembling fingers as if tied by invisible hands. Maria's appetite vanished, her strength ebbing as sleepless nights stretched into endless torment. She grew pale, her long beautiful hair dulling, the village whispering of El Sombrero's curse. But Maria, hollow-eyed and weak, could only hear his song, her heart heavy with an ache she couldn't name. Weeks passed, her body wasting, the guitar's melody now a constant drone in her mind. One night as the voice sang, Maria took her last breath, her heart unable to continue beating in her weakened body. The village fell silent, mourning Maria, as El Sombrero claimed her soul. The night still echoes his melody, seeking the next woman to haunt. In Connecticut's hanging hills, where jagged cliffs loomed over Meriden like silent sentinels, Thomas, a geologist in his early 50s, trekked with his weathered journal, its pages filled with sketches of ancient strata. Raised in New Haven, he'd heard tales from a grizzled ranger about the black dog of Hanging Hills, a spectral hound from the 1800s said to bring joy on the first sighting, a sorrow on the second, and death on the third. Thomas, grounded in science but charmed by folklore, dismissed it as a yarn, yet the hill's eerie quiet stirred his blood. One October dusk, as fog curled like ghostly fingers, the air thick with pine, damp stone, and a faint acrid whiff of charred earth, his boots crunched on frost-bitten leaves. A low growl rumbled, not the wind but something alive, slithering through the mist. His flashlight beam trembled, catching two glowing eyes, red, unblinking, in the haze, a small black dog perched on a rocky outcrop, its gaze piercing his core. His breath hitched, heart thudding against his ribs, but curiosity held him, the eyes vanishing into the fog, leaving a chill that lingered like a warning. Days later, the growl returned, deeper, more insistent, the cliff's shadows sharper under a moon choked by clouds. Thomas, mapping a new ridge, felt a prickle on his neck, as if the hills themselves watched. His flashlight flickered, its beam weak, catching the black dog again, larger now, its fur matted like burnt coal, eyes burning like embers along the cliff's edge. The ranger's words, "Second sighting, beware," clawed at his mind, but he pressed on, the trail narrowing, rocks skittering underfoot like whispered threats. The growl hummed, "Thomas," his name a guttural echo woven into the wind's howl, sending a shiver down his spine. He scribbled in his journal, hands shaking, the ink smudging as if the dog's gaze bled through the pages. The mist thickened, a suffocating shroud, the air heavy with a metallic tang like blood on stone. The cliffs seemed to shift, their edges crumbling, the path twisting into a maze. His pulse raced, doubt creeping in. Was this real, or was his mind unraveling? The fog pulsed, the dog's silhouette flickering, its eyes never leaving him, a weight pressing his chest. On his third hike, the air turned frigid, the growl swelling into a snarl that shook the stones beneath his feet. Thomas, driven by a mix of defiance and dread, climbed higher, the cliffs looming like jagged teeth. The black dog appeared, massive now, its form swallowing the light, eyes molten, trailing him through the fog, its steps silent but heavy, like a heartbeat in the earth. Its growl seemed more a roar, a blade in his mind, conjuring visions of his own grave, dirt piling over him, worms writhing, darkness closing in. He ran, the cliff's edge splintering, rocks slicing his palms, blood mixing with frost, the pain sharp but drowned by terror. The mist tightened like a noose, the dog's gaze burning into his skull, his thoughts fraying. Every shadow was its form, every sound its growl. His lungs burned, each breath a struggle, the visions intensifying, his body broken at the cliff's base, eyes staring blankly. Thomas stumbled, a loose stone underfoot. Must be careful, he reminded himself as he ran. The dog's eyes seemed closer, unrelenting. Thomas' foot caught another loose stone, twisting his ankle. His screams tore through the fog, merging with a faint snarl on the wind. The hills fell silent once more, save for a faint howl. Hikers found Thomas the next day, his body broken from a fall at the cliff's base. They say the black dog still prowls the hanging hills, waiting for the doomed to cross his path. In East Anglian folklore, a chilling tale haunts the windswept moors near Bungay. The Black Shuck's Gaze tells of Ellen, a content creator in her late 20s from Norfolk, who chased England's ghostly legends for her channel. At a weathered pub, an old farmer spun tales of the Black Shuck, a massive dog with fiery eyes, a 16th century omen whose gaze brought death to those it met on lonely paths. Ellen, her curiosity outweighing her skepticism, ventured to the moors under a moon smothered by clouds, her video camera in hand, the air thick with heather, salt, and a sour rot that stung her nostrils. As midnight struck, a low growl rumbled through the fog that prickled Ellen's skin like needles. Her pulse quickened, but her passion for a viral video drove her deeper, her boots sinking into the boggy earth, the moor's silence heavy, like a breath held too long. The growl deepened, a snarl curling through the air, the fog so dense it clung to her face like a damp shroud. Ellen's camera hissed, capturing only static. A massive shape loomed, the Black Shuck, its fur a void darker than the night, eyes like molten coals, pacing silently across the moor. The farmer's warning, its gaze kills, echoed, but her camera light dimmed, its beam swallowed by the mist. She stumbled back, the moor shifting, paths dissolving into a mire that sucked at her boots. The Shuck's eyes locked onto hers, burning through her mind, conjuring memories, her brother's accident, blood on asphalt, her own voice screaming into the void. The growl swelled, the air choking with dread, her heart hammering as if it might burst. She ran, thorns tearing her legs, blood seeping through her jeans, the moor's grasses hissing like a chorus of whispers. The fog thickened, the Shuck trailing her, its gaze a weight that pressed her thoughts into chaos. Every rustle was its step, every shadow its form. Ellen's breath came in gasps, the moor's cold seeping into her bones, the snarl now a constant drone. Her mind spiraled, paranoia creeping in. Was the path looping, or was she lost? Memories flooded harder, her failures, her guilt, each one a knife twisted by the Shuck's eyes. She tripped into a ditch, pain flaring, the mud pulling at her like a living thing. The fog pulsed, the Shuck's silhouette closer, its eyes glowing like twin fires, unrelenting. She clawed forward, her camera slipping into the mire. Visions of her death, cold, alone, the moor her grave, overwhelmed her, her sanity fraying as she saw herself sinking, forgotten. Her cries merged with the snarl, her body sinking, the fog swallowing her as if she'd never been. The moors fell silent, save for a faint growl. Locals found only her camera, broken and caked with mud, on the path. Locals still warn of the black shuck's eyes burning in the night. In a dense New England forest near Concord, Massachusetts, where gnarled oaks twisted under a gray sky, Lydia, a writer in her late 30s, ventured out to do research for her book on local folklore, her notebook brimming with tales of ghosts and omens. Raised in Boston, she'd heard whispers from a local librarian about crows in the Blackwood Forest, said to be death omens since colonial times, their cries warning of tragedy before snatching the souls of those who lingered. Lydia, skeptical but obsessed with capturing the region's stories, pushed deeper into the forest, her boots crunching on dry leaves, the air thick with pine, earth, and a faint metallic tang like blood on stone. As dusk fell, a single caw sliced the silence, sharp as a knife, followed by a chorus of rasping cries. Lydia, her name woven into the sound, chilling her blood. Her pen froze over her notebook, curiosity battling a creeping dread, but the forest stillness and the promise of a tale for her book urged her to stay, the caws echoing like a summons from the shadows. The cries sharpened, a cacophony that clawed the air, the forest darkening as if the light itself retreated. Lydia's flashlight flickered, its beam catching dozens of crows perched in the branches, their feathers gleaming like oil, their black eyes glinting like polished obsidian, fixed on her every step. The librarian's warning, crows marked the doomed gnawed at her, but she pressed on, the path narrowing, twigs snapping underfoot like brittle bones. The caws merged into a voice, Lydia, low and guttural, stirring the leaves in a windless gust. Her heart pounded, the air heavy with a sour rot like decay seeping from the earth. She scribbled notes, hands trembling, ink smudging as she frantically wrote, her mind racing. Were these tales real? The forest pulsed, branches swaying, the cries now a chant, Lydia. Visions flashed, graves yawning open, her own face pale and lifeless, eyes staring blankly. She ran, vines snaring her, their thorns drawing blood that stung in the cold. The crows followed, their wings a deafening rustle, their caws screaming Lydia. Her breath came in ragged gasps, the air choking with fear, each step heavier, as if the forest floor clung to her soul. She stumbled into a clearing, the crows circling above, their eyes burning like embers, a weight pressing her mind into chaos. Pain seared her chest, her thoughts unraveling. Every shadow was a crow, every sound their cry. Her screams merged with the caws, her body slumping to the ground as she clutched her chest, her vision fading to black. The forest fell silent, save for a single caw. Hikers found Lydia the next day, dead from a heart attack, and in the Blackwood Forest, the crows wait, eyes ever watching for the doomed to cross their path. A chilling tale haunts the highlands. The Eclectic's Ravens tells of Duncan, a historian in his early 40s from Inverness, who studied ancient myths. At a village inn, an old crofter shared tales of the Eclectic, a winter goddess whose ravens cawed before death, their cries cursing those who wandered her glen. Duncan, drawn to the lore, trekked into a misty glen near Glencoe, his camera slung over his shoulder, the air thick with heather, damp stone, and a bitter whiff of frost-bitten earth. As night fell, a harsh caw sliced through the mist. Duncan, the sound coiling around his heart like a frozen chain. His pulse raced, but his passion for history pushed him deeper, the glen's silence heavy like a tomb's quiet. The caws swelled, a chorus that tore the air, the glen's mist thickening as if it breathed. Duncan's camera lens fogged, capturing only shadows, but he saw them. Ravens, their feathers black as coal, perched on jagged rocks, their eyes glinting like shards of ice. The crofter's warning, ravens herald death, echoed, but he pressed on, the path vanishing into boggy earth. The caws formed a voice, Duncan, rasping and cold, the mist swirling like wraiths. His hands shook, the air sour with decay, like a frost-covered grave. He snapped photos, the shutter clicking erratically as if the raven's gaze jammed the lens. The glen pulsed, rocks trembling, the caws now a scream. Duncan. Vision surged, slaughter in the glen, bodies frozen, his own face pale and still. He ran, his boots sinking in the mud, fighting against the weight of it trying to pull him down. The ravens swooped, their wings a thunderous roar, their cries keening. Duncan, his breath faltered, the air heavy with fear, his legs sinking into the freezing bog. He stumbled into a hollow, the ravens circling, their eyes burning like frostfire, his mind spiraling. Every rustle was their wings, every shadow their form. The cold seemed to seep into Duncan, chilling him to his very bones. The frost was relentless, his body lost in the glen, entombed in ice. His cries for help merged with the cause, his body sinking claimed by the cold and ice, his vision fading to black. The glen fell silent, save for a lone caw. Locals found only his camera, its film warped. In the glen, the calyx ravens watch, waiting to call another soul to the afterlife. In 1850s Charleston, South Carolina, where gaslit streets hummed with secrets, Eliza, a bride-to-be in her mid-20s, prepared for her wedding to William, the love of her life, in a grand townhouse. Growing up, she was close to her great-aunt Gertie, a spinster who died when Eliza was 20. Eliza often asked why Gertie never married, but Gertie's vague replies, "Some things aren't meant to be," hid a secret. Her fiancé died suddenly on their wedding day, a tragedy Eliza learned only after Gertie's passing. 4 years later, 2 days before her own wedding, Eliza searched the townhouse attic for Gertie's trunk, her grandmother mentioning a beautiful veil gifted to Gertie on her wedding day, sender unknown. Wanting to feel Gertie's presence, Eliza found the silk veil, its threads shimmering like moonlight, smelling faintly of ash and roses. She had it cleaned, its touch cool against her skin, but as she tried it on, a whisper hissed. Eliza, her name coiling in the candlelight, stirring unease. Curiosity and love for Gertie kept her holding the veil, its whispers growing louder each night. On her wedding day, Eliza donned the veil, its silk clinging like a second skin, and walked down the aisle, heart soaring. As she reached William, he clutched his chest, eyes wide with pain, and collapsed dead, the crowd gasping. Doctors called it a heart attack, strange for one so young, but Eliza, devastated, saw Gertie's fate mirrored in her own. The air grew heavy with a sour tang of decay, the veil's whispers sharpening, "He's gone." Numb with grief, Eliza returned to the attic, suspicion gnawing. Was the veil cursed? She found Gertie's diary, its pages revealing a chilling truth. A jealous suitor, spurned by Gertie, cursed the veil to kill any groom whose bride wore it, dooming her to a life unwed and alone. The suitor's letter, tucked in the diary, taunted, "The veil will find a happy bride." The townhouse's walls seemed to creak, mirrors dimming, reflecting only shadows. Eliza tried to burn the veil, but it wouldn't catch fire, its silk unyielding to blade or tear. Desperate, she hid it in the attic, vowing to guard it, her heart breaking as she faced a lonely life. The veil's curse echoing Gertie's sorrow. Years later, neighbors whispered of Eliza, unwed and solitary, guarding the townhouse, hoping her death would bury the veil's curse forever, its shadow still lingering in Charleston streets. In Mexican folklore, a chilling tale haunts the bridal shops of 1930s Chihuahua. La Pascualita's curse tells of Isabella, a bride-to-be in her early 30s, shopping for her wedding gown at La Casa de Novias Pascualita. Locals whispered of the shop's mannequin, La Pascualita, rumored to be the embalmed body of the owner's daughter, who died on her wedding day from a black widow bite. Her gowns, changed weekly, were said to curse brides with misfortune, failed marriages, and mysterious deaths. Isabella, radiant with love for her fiancé, Javier, dismissing the tales, was drawn to a stunning gown on the mannequin, its silk shimmering with rose embroidery, smelling faintly of dust and jasmine. Trying it on in the shop's back room, she felt a sudden chill, her reflection in a dusty mirror flickering with a pale, hollow-eyed figure. Isabella dismissed it as a trick of the light. Fear briefly pricked her heart, but her love for Javier urged her to buy the gown. Isabella's dreams turned dark, nightmares of Javier lifeless, his body cold on their marriage bed. She dismissed them as wedding jitters, but the locals' tales of La Pascualita's curse dooming wearers gnawed at her. On her wedding day, Isabella happily donned her wedding gown, excited to spend the rest of her life with Javier. When it was time for her to walk down the aisle, her parents, with joy in their hearts, went to get her. When they opened the door to her room, their hearts shattered. Isabella, dressed in her beautiful gown, lay in her bed, her body marked by a faint red welt like a black widow's bite. She died alone in the hacienda, her gown pristine, never worn down the aisle. Locals whispered that La Pascualita's curse had claimed another victim, her gown still waiting for the next bride in Chihuahua shadows. In 1930s rural Ohio, in a weathered farmhouse amid endless fields, sisters Sarah and Katie, ages 10 and 12, lived with their widowed mother Ruth, who had lost her husband only a few months prior to a sudden fever. The girls, restless and rebellious in their grief, often ignored Ruth's pleas for good behavior. One summer evening, lying in their shared bedroom with the window open to catch the cool breeze, they heard it. A rhythmic drumbeat carried on the wind, soft at first, then growing louder, hypnotic, pulling at their hearts. Curious, the sisters slipped out the window, barefoot in their nightgowns, following the sound across the moonlit fields. There, beneath an ancient oak, sat a strange but pretty little girl, her tangled hair catching the starlight, playing a small bone-carved drum etched with jagged symbols. But her eyes, strange purple eyes that seemed to glow in the night, gave away her demonic nature. Instantly captivated, Sarah and Katie wanted the drum for themselves. The girl smiled sweetly and whispered, "You can have the drum if you cut up your mother's best church dresses." The sisters agreed without hesitation, the drum's beat echoing in their minds as they returned home. The next day, while Ruth was at market, the girls found her wardrobe and spent hours meticulously cutting up all her best church dresses. The blue silk with lace trim, the green velvet with pearl buttons, every single one reduced to tattered rags. When Ruth returned and discovered the destruction, her face crumpled in devastation. "My beautiful dresses, gone," she wept, sending the girls to bed without dinner, their stomachs growling but their hearts racing with anticipation. That night, as punishment loomed, they heard the drum again, its rhythm calling through the open window like a siren's song. Sneaking out once more, they found the little girl beneath the oak, her purple eyes glowing brighter. "We did it!" Sarah cried. "Give us the drum!" But the girl refused, her smile twisting slightly. "Not yet. Tomorrow, break all your mother's best china if you want the drum." The girls agreed eagerly and returned home, the drum's promise burning in their souls. The following day, while Ruth tended the garden, Katie and Sarah gathered her cherished china set. The heirloom plates, bowls, and teacups that had belonged to her grandmother, passed down through generations. One by one, they smashed them against the kitchen floor, the delicate rose-patterned plates shattering into 100 pieces, the gold-rimmed teacups exploding like fireworks, the serving bowls cracking with finality. The sound was deafening, shards glittering like fallen stars. When Ruth discovered the devastation, she collapsed to her knees among the broken pieces, sobbing uncontrollably. "My grandmother's china, irreplaceable," she whispered, her voice breaking. Devastated beyond words, she sent the girls to bed, declaring, "You are not to leave this room for 3 days as punishment." But that very night, defying her orders, the drum's rhythm drifted through their window again, irresistible. Sneaking out, they found the girl waiting, purple eyes pulsing like amethysts. "We broke it all," Katie exclaimed. The girl shook her head. "If you want the drum, destroy everything left that belonged to your father." The sisters hesitated for the first time, briefly remembering their father. A good man who had loved them dearly, who told them bedtime stories and carved wooden toys, but the pull of the drum's beat drowned their memories, the desire to claim it overwhelming their hearts. They agreed. The next day, they went on a rampage, smashing his tobacco pipe against the hearth, slashing his work shirts and trousers with kitchen scissors, ripping his beloved leather journals filled with sketches and poems. They ended by taking an axe to his favorite armchair, the worn oak chair where he sat every night. telling stories to his wife and daughters, its arms polished smooth from years of love. When Ruth found the destruction, she was beyond devastated, her spirit broken. Falling to her knees beside the splintered chair, she warned through tears, "Your horrible behavior will be your undoing if you don't change your ways." That night, hearing the drums call once more, the girls snuck out to find the little girl waiting, her purple eyes now blazing like twin moons. "We destroyed it all. Give us the drum," Sarah demanded. The girl grinned wickedly. "Burn down your house, and the drum is yours forever." Desperate to claim their prize, the girls agreed without a second thought. That very night, while Ruth slept, Sarah and Katie crept through the darkened house with a lantern and oil can, pouring fuel on the curtains, the rugs, the wooden beams. They struck the match, watching in mesmerized silence as flames leaped to life, dancing shadows across the walls. They danced in joy outside, believing the drum would finally be theirs, twirling in their nightgowns as the fire roared. Unaware, their mother's screams pierced the night as Ruth awoke trapped inside, pounding on a window before vanishing in the inferno. The girls, lost in their triumph, returned to the ancient oak to claim their reward. But there was no little girl, no drum, only silence. Returning to the smoldering ruins, they found no mother. Ruth had perished in the flames they set. No home, no parents. Nothing but ashes and the haunting echo of demonic laughter carried on the wind. A child's giggle twisted into something unholy. The sisters, now utterly alone, wandered into the night, the demon's laughter their only companion. Locals found only charred ruins, whispering of a cursed drum that lured souls to utter ruin in Ohio's shadows. In 1760s Bavaria, in a humble farmstead nestled among misty hills, young Hans, age 14, lived with his widowed mother and little sister, dreaming of music while shirking farm chores. One foggy autumn evening, tending sheep near the crumbling mill, he unearthed a weathered fiddle case from damp earth. Inside lay a black violin, ebony wood gleaming like polished obsidian, strings humming with infernal energy, reeking of sulfur and pine resin. A tall, shadowy man materialized from the mist, his eyes blazing like forge fires, whispering, "Play it, and riches beyond imagining are yours." Hans drew the bow. The mournful wail was exquisite, haunting, perfect. He hid the devil's fiddle in the hayloft, its melody consuming his soul. By day, Hans became a prodigy. Villagers gathered at the farmstead, mesmerized by his flawless playing. Melodies that brought tears, laughter, joy. Word spread beyond the hills. Travelers came from Munich, Salzburg, even Vienna to hear the boy fiddler of Bavaria. Inns paid gold coins for private concerts. Merchants showered him with silver. Within months, Hans was wealthy. Fine clothes, a new roof for the farmstead, meat on the table nightly. His mother beamed with pride. Villagers hailed him as blessed. But at night, the devil returned. First night, fiery eyes pierced the darkness. Keep the fiddle, steal apples from neighbor Miller by dawn. Greedy for the music's power, Hans obeyed, plucking ripe apples under moonless skies, heart pounding with forbidden thrill. Daylight fame grew. A nobleman gifted him a velvet case. Second night, the devil's voice hissed, "Grain sacks from the miller, he wronged your father." Hans dragged heavy sacks through fog-choked fields, sweat beating, fiddle's melody echoing in his mind. Village acclaim swelled, festival organizers begged for performances, coin purses overflowed. Third night, fiery eyes burned brighter. Silver from the church altar, priest hoards it. Hans crept into the shadowed nave, fingers trembling as he pocketed gleaming coins, crucifix weeping wax tears above. Wealth poured in, carriages arrived with patrons, gold chains draped his neck. Fourth night, paranoia gripped Hans. His sister stared unnaturally. Mother's soup tasted of ash. The devil demanded, "Burn the miller's barn, the final price." Hans, desperate to keep his fame, soaked timbers with lantern oil, striking flint with shaking hands. Flames erupted with a hungry roar, illuminating the devil's grinning face. The inferno spread uncontrollably, leaping to the village, then Hans's own farmstead. Screams filled the night as thatched roofs ignited. Hans fled through choking smoke. Fiddle clutched desperately, but the shadowy man materialized. The pact is complete. The violin burst into flames in his hands, burning his flesh. Hans stumbled into the pyre, consumed alongside his mother and sister, their screams lost to the crackling blaze. Dawn revealed smoldering ruins. The village devastated, Hans's gold melted into slag, the devil's fiddle claiming its price. Bavarian elders still warn, talent from darkness demands destruction. In 1890, Salem, Massachusetts, in a saltbox cottage near the Gallows Hill, widow Abigail, age 34, lived alone, still mourning her husband lost to consumption. Locals whispered of cursed heirlooms from the witch trials, but Abigail dismissed them as superstition. One autumn afternoon, pruning her herb garden, she unearthed a tarnished silver locket buried beneath witch hazel roots. Its surface bore thorny roses and the initials MH 1692, smelling of dried blood and cloves. Inside gleamed a faded miniature of a stern woman in Puritan garb, her eyes piercing like daggers. A chill gripped Abigail's heart, but the locket felt warm against her skin. She clasped it around her neck, drawn by an unseen force. That night, the locket ticked like a heartbeat, whispering, "Thomas, Thomas," her late husband's name. Abigail dismissed it as grief, but mirrors began showing shadows behind her reflection, faint outlines of a veiled woman. The cottage grew oppressive, clocks ran backward, lavender wilted overnight, quill pens bled ink unbidden. Abigail's letters to her sister smeared with crimson, as if the locket wept blood. Paranoia set in. Footsteps echoed in empty rooms, her husband's voice murmured from the walls, "She's coming for you." One stormy evening, thunder rattling the shutters, the locket snapped open. Inside was not the portrait, but Abigail's own anguished face, screaming silently. She clawed at her throat, but the chain burned like iron. Dawn found the cottage empty, the locket on the table, now bearing AP 1892. Locals whispered of the cursed silver locket, binding widows to the unholy trinket forever in Salem's shadows. In 1780s rural Yorkshire, in a stone manor amid whispering moors, Eleanor, aged 32, lived as the mistress of nobleman Lord Robert Ashford. For years, she reveled in stolen nights and lavish gifts, blind to his lawful wife, Lady Margaret, who discovered the affair and died of a broken heart months earlier. When Margaret passed, Robert cast Eleanor aside, returning to his manor and title. Bitter and scorned, Eleanor wandered the moors until one misty morning near the family crypt, she unearthed a gold locket etched with thorny vines, smelling of attar of roses and grave earth. Inside was Lady Beatrice's portrait, pale, imperious, eyes like polished jet, a noblewoman jilted in 1642. The locket pulsed warmly. Eleanor wore it, drawn to its familiar weight. Night fell. The locket whispered accusations. "Thief, you stole my place." Margaret's voice mingling with Beatrice's. Mirrors clouded with frost, revealing two silhouettes, Beatrice's noble fury and Margaret's weeping sorrow behind Eleanor's reflection. The manor groaned. Chandeliers swayed violently. Portrait's eyes bled crimson. Margaret's wedding ring fell from a locked drawer. Eleanor's diary entries bled black ink, pages curling as if scorched by righteous anger. Guilt consumed her. Cold fingers of two women brushed her neck. Their voices hissed in unison from the hearth. "You broke her heart, now yours breaks." During a howling gale, thunder shaking the ancient stones, the locket burst open. Inside gleamed not Beatrice, but Eleanor's own tear-streaked face alongside Margaret's. She tore at the chain, but it tightened like a noose, Beatrice and Margaret's laughter echoing. Servants found the manor deserted, the locket on the escritoire, now engraved EA 1782. Yorkshire folk whispered of Lady Beatrice's vengeance, her locket claiming mistresses who destroy noble marriages in England's shadows. In 1920s Dayton, Ohio, where the Great Miami River wound through quiet suburbs, Evelyn, a young widow in her late 20s, lived in a modest bungalow near Woodland Cemetery after losing her husband to the influenza pandemic. Evelyn, a schoolteacher by day, spent evenings wandering the cemetery paths, drawn to the solace of the graves. Locals whispered of the weeping woman of Woodland, a spectral figure said to haunt the cemetery since the 1800s, her cries luring the grieving to join her in eternal lament. Evelyn, skeptical but haunted by her own loss, dismissed the tales as superstition. One foggy autumn dusk, as she strolled the cemetery's winding lanes, the air thick with damp earth and fading leaves, a soft wail rose from the tombs. Evelyn, her name woven into the wind like a lament. Her heart clenched, curiosity warring with fear, but the cemetery's silence and her longing for her lost husband urged her to linger, the wail echoing like a siren's song. The wail deepened, a keening cry that stirred the headstones, the cemetery's mist thickening as if the ground wept. Evelyn's lantern flickered, its light catching a figure, a ghostly woman, her gown tattered, eyes hollow with endless tears, standing among the graves. The locals' warnings, "Don't heed the weeping woman," gnawed at her, but Evelyn stepped closer, the gravel crunching underfoot, cold seeping into her bones. The wail formed words, "Join me," mournful and sharp, the air heavy with a bitter rot. Her hands trembled, clutching her shawl, the fog stinging her face like needles. The cemetery pulsed, its stones shimmering, the woman's desperate whisper, "Evelyn, come." The woman glided closer, her form rippling, weeping, "Stay." The air choked with despair. Evelyn, mesmerized, moved forward, each step growing heavier, as if the graves pulled her towards them. Evelyn stumbled to a mausoleum, the woman's weeping eyes burning, a weight crushing her mind. Every whisper was her wail, every shadow her form. Pain seared Evelyn's chest, her thoughts fraying, her heart beating frantically from fear. Her screams merged with the wail, her body slumping to the ground, her vision fading to black. The cemetery fell silent, save for a lone wail. Visitors found Evelyn's body lying against the headstone of her beloved husband. Some still whisper to this day that the weeping woman still calls from woodland shadows. That's the haunting tale of the weeping widow, rooted in the weeping woman of Woodland Cemetery legend. Since the 1870s, witnesses report a woman in Victorian mourning dress weeping near the McCook Mausoleum, her cries echoing on foggy nights. Tied to Mary Jane McCook, who lost her family to cholera in 1873 and vanished shortly after, the legend warns of her sorrow luring the grieving. Documented in local papers like the Dayton Journal-Herald, 1923, her wails are said to follow visitors home, causing sleepless nights. In Mexican folklore, a haunting legend echoes across the rivers. La Llorona's lament tells of Rosa, a young woman in her late teens from a small village in central Mexico, living with her fisherman father after her mother's passing. Locals spoke of La Llorona, the weeping woman who drowned her children in rage over her husband's infidelity, and now wanders the rivers, her cries cursing those who hear them to join her in eternal torment. Rosa, skeptical but haunted by her own loneliness, walked the riverbank one moonlit night, the air thick with willows and the scent of damp earth. As the water lapped softly, a low weeping caught her ears, then a whisper, Rosa, her name woven into the current like a lament. Her heart clenched, curiosity warring with fear, but the river's gentle flow and her longing for companionship urged her closer, the weeping echoing like a siren's song. The cries deepened, a keening cry that stirred the willows, the river's surface rippling as if the water wept. Rosa's lantern flickered, its light catching a figure, a ghostly woman, her gown sodden, eyes flowing with endless tears, standing in the shallows. The villagers' warnings, "Don't heed La Llorona," gnawed at her, but Rosa stepped closer, the mud sucking at her sandals, cold seeping into her bones. The weeping formed words, "Join me," mournful and sharp, the air heavy with a briny rot. Her hands trembled, clutching her shawl, the fog stinging her face like needles. The river pulsed, its waters swirling, the woman's wail swelling. "Rosa, come!" she whispered, holding her ghostly hand out. Visions flashed, Rosa sinking beneath the waves, her own face pale and still. Rose took a step back, but the woman glided closer, her form rippling, wail screaming, "Stay!" The air choked with despair, each step heavier, as if the river pulled her back. Rosa stumbled to the bank, the woman's hollow eyes burning, a weight crushing her mind. Every ripple was her form, every sound her cry. Pain seared her chest, her thoughts fraying, the visions relentless. Her body lost in the river, forgotten. Her screams merged with the wail, her body sinking, claimed by the waters, her vision fading to black. The river fell silent, save for a lone wail. Villagers found only her shawl, snagged on the bank, La Llorona still calling from Mexico's shadows. In the fog-choked pines of Oregon's coastal range, where mist clung to gnarled roots, lived Caleb, a trapper who roamed the wilds alone. While out checking his traps one twilight, as shadows bled across the pines, he spotted strange tracks, fresh, bare footprints, impossibly deep, winding into the fog. Each step pulsed with a faint glow, as if lit from below, and the air grew heavy with the stench of damp rot. Curious, Caleb followed, his lantern flickering, the forest silence broken by a low rhythmic thud, like footsteps pacing his own. The prince led to a sunken glade, where an ancient cedar stood, its bark carved with jagged runes that seemed to writhe. The footprints circled the tree, then stopped as if their maker had vanished. Caleb's breath hitched as the ground seemed to vibrate with a dark energy, and a voice rasped from the shadows, "You've walked my path." The mist thickened, his lantern snuffed out, and the cedar's branches creaked, bending toward him like claws. Shadows flickered, forming a gaunt figure with black eyes, its feet leaving glowing prints that burned the earth. Caleb, horrified, turned and ran from the terrifying figure. He swore he could hear footsteps chasing after him, causing him to panic and lose his way in the dark. By dawn, Caleb stumbled home, his eyes wild, the footprints' glow seared into his mind. In the days following his encounter, his cabin's floorboards groaned under invisible steps, leaving scorched marks, the air thick with whispers of Caleb's name. The forest's pines seemed to lean inward, their shadows pooling like ink, and the thud of unseen feet echoed nightly. Caleb sought a local elder, who spoke of a hunter, cursed for desecrating a sacred grove, his spirit bound to lure others with his tracks. Caleb tried salting the glade, but the footprints flared brighter, and the cedar bled sap that smelled of ash. One night Caleb vanished, his final cry lost in the glade's shadows. The forest fell silent, but some say the footprints still appear, glowing, calling the curious to follow. In the high mountains of Gifu, where winter winds carve silence into stone, a lone traveler named Taro journeyed between villages. Snow fell in sheets, erasing the path. At dusk he saw it, a single line of deep footprints, each print round and wide as if made by a giant's heel. No second foot, no return trail, just one, hopping forward into the white void. Taro followed. The prints grew deeper, the snow grew colder, the pines grew still. Then nothing. The trail ended at a frozen torii gate, half buried in drifts. No wind, no sound. Only a single red eye blinking from the dark between the pillars. Taro never reached the next village. His pack was found weeks later, strapped to a cedar untouched. Inside, a single sandal caked in frost. Locals say on moonless nights, the footprints appear again, 1, 2, 3, then vanish. And somewhere, a lone traveler still walks. That's the Yukinudo's Trail, whispered in Gifu's mountain hamlets. A one-eyed, one-legged spirit of winter, it leaves a solitary path in the snow. Follow, and the trail ends. You end, no struggle. No scream, just absence. Told by elders at Hearthside, it warns, some paths are not meant to be followed. In 1995, Salem, Massachusetts, where Nirvana still played on every radio and Blockbuster ruled Friday nights, lived Eliza, a 24-year-old graphic design student at Salem State. She thrifted everything, flannel shirts, Doc Martens, and one fateful Saturday, an antique mirror from a dusty estate sale on Derby Street. The frame was black lacquer, cracked like spiderwebs, the glass cloudy with age. The old woman selling it muttered, "Never wipe it clean, it remembers." Eliza laughed, paid $15, and hung it above her vanity in her tiny apartment over a coffee shop. The first night, she noticed a smudge in the center, like a handprint, but inside the glass. She tried cleaning it again. Nothing. The smudge stayed. She shrugged. old glass, weird light. But the next morning, the print was red. 5 fingers, palm wide, dripping down like fresh paint. She scrubbed harder. The print faded, but her right hand bled from a cut she didn't remember getting. On the second night, Eliza woke at 2:17 a.m. to the sound of scratching, nails on glass, slow and deliberate. She sat up. The mirror seemed to glow faintly from the streetlight outside. In the reflection, her bed was empty. Instead, she was standing beside her bed, the arms at her sides, smiling. Eliza looked to the side of her bed. No one. Back at the mirror, her reflection waved. Getting up, she yanked a throw blanket from the end of her bed. A single drop of blood rolled down the glass, pooling at the bottom like a tear. Fearful, Eliza covered the mirror with the blanket. When Eliza woke up in the morning, the blanket was on the floor. Eliza quickly left the room, staying clear of the mirror. By the third night, the print returned, larger, closer to the surface. Eliza's reflection smiled when she didn't. Her cursor blinked on her computer as she designed a flyer, but in the mirror, her reflection typed something else. Help me. She covered the mirror again. The print seeped through the blanket covering the mirror. Her computer died overnight, screen cracked in a perfect handprint. Her roommate, Jess, heard wet slaps against glass at 3 a.m. It's just the pipes, Eliza lied. But Jess had seen it too. Eliza's reflection blinking out of sync. They tried getting rid of the mirror, but when they returned home, the mirror was back on the wall. Any pictures taken of Eliza were developed with bloody fingerprints over her smile. Her Walkman played static that sounded like breathing. One midnight, the glass cracked, a perfect spiderweb from the center. A bloody hand pressed from inside, fingers curling like smoke. Eliza screamed. The hand grabbed her throat, not hard, just enough to feel cold. Her reflection stepped forward, smiling with Eliza's face, but black eyes. The mirror shattered outward. Shards hung in the air, then flew back together, reassembling flawlessly. Dawn came. Jess found the apartment empty. The mirror hung spotless. On the vanity, Eliza's driver's license cut in half, and a post-it in her handwriting, "It remembers." A few years later, the mirror sold at another estate sale. $10. In the Joseon era, a village girl named Hyejin lived by the Han River. Her lover, a Yangban scholar, promised marriage. He left for Hanyang to take the Guazhou exam. Months passed, no letter. Hyejin with child was cast out. In despair, she drowned herself and the unborn babe in the river's black current. Her body washed ashore at Mapo. The village buried her in an unmarked grave, but her Gwisin, a maiden ghost, returned each full moon. She appeared in still water, ponds, wells, bronze mirrors. Her long hair floated. Her eyes were hollow. Her hanbok dripped. One autumn, a traveling merchant bought a bronze hand mirror from an old woman's stall. The old woman warned, "Never look at it during the hour of the ox." He laughed, dismissing the warning. That night, in his Hanok Inn, to prove the old woman foolish, he looked in the mirror during the hour of the ox. Hyejin's face appeared, smiling. He blinked. She was behind him. He turned. Nothing. Back at the mirror. Her hand pressed the glass. He fled to the courtyard. The well water showed her face. He ran to the riverbank. The current reflected her smile. At dawn, his pack was found by the inn. Inside, the mirror cracked and a single wet footprint leading to the river. The merchant was never seen again. Years later, a young woman found the mirror in the mud. She looked in it during the hour of the ox. The cycle began anew. In 1957, rural Georgia, where cotton fields stretched under moonless skies and Chevy Bel Airs rattled down dirt roads, lived Jimmy Ray, a 17-year-old farm boy with a daredevil streak. His buddies, Bubba, Clyde, and Skeeter, hung out nightly at the old oak by Pine Hill Cemetery, swapping ghost stories, smoking Lucky Strikes, and listening to Elvis on the car radio. One Friday, after a drive-in showing of Jailhouse Rock, they were knee-deep in tales. Jimmy Ray leaned back, flicked his cigarette, and said, "Y'all ever hear about the stake trick?" The boys shook their heads. He lowered his voice. If you drive a wooden stake into a fresh grave at midnight, the ghost of the person buried there will rise up and drag you down into the earth with him. That's what my grandpappy swore. Said it happened to a cousin in 29. Skeeter snorted. That's hogwash, Jimmy. I'll bet you $5 you won't do it tonight, the others hooted. Jimmy Ray grinned. Easy money. Miss Etta May, the town seamstress, had been buried that morning after a heart attack. You're on, he said. At 11:58 p.m., the boys crept past the rusted iron gate. Crickets went silent. Fog rolled from the headstones like dry ice. Jimmy Ray carried a wooden stake and mallet from his dad's garage. The mound was fresh, red clay, plastic flowers. He knelt, hammer raised. Thud. The stake pierced the earth. He chuckled. $5 in the bag. Standing up, he found he couldn't move. Then he felt a tug. Jimmy tried moving again, but no matter how he pulled at his leg, it wouldn't budge. He yanked. Nothing. He pulled harder. Nothing. He was trapped. Guys, he whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Silence. His friends had vanished into the fog. The wind picked up. Leaves rustled like fingers. Jimmy Ray tugged again. Whatever had him held tight. He thought he heard a whisper. Jimmy from beneath the soil. His heart hammered. He jerked, twisted, screamed, "Let go!" The ground seemed to pulse around him. Jimmy swore cold fingers brushed his ankles. He thrashed, kicked, but to no avail. "The ghost has me," he wailed. Tears streamed. His chest tightened. The fog thickened. Shadows seemed to dance all around him, reaching for him. He clawed the dirt, choked with fear, gasping, heart racing until nothing. Dawn broke. Bubba, Clyde, and Skeeter returned laughing, flashlights scanning the cemetery. They found Jimmy Ray slumped over the grave, eyes wide, mouth frozen in a scream. The stake had pierced the hem of his pants. He'd pinned himself. No ghost, just terror. In his clenched fist, the crumpled $5 bill. In 1846, where famine gnawed the land and bogs swallowed secrets, lived Noah, a 19-year-old stable boy for a cruel landlord. On All Souls' Night by the peat fire, the landlord's son, Patrick, shared a tale. Ride through Ballina Hinch graveyard at midnight, and the Dullahan will call your name and claim your soul. Noah, half-starved, laughed it off. Patrick sneered and wagered 10 shillings, a month's wages, that Noah wouldn't ride through at midnight. Noah, wanting to feed his family, took the bet. At 11:59 p.m., Noah mounted a gray mare, her breath steaming in the frosty air. Hooves clattered on the cobblestone path. The graveyard gate loomed in the distance, its iron twisted and ivy choking. Stars vanished. Fog curled like ghosts rising. Noah spurred the mare, heart pounding. A low rumble grew. Hooves, not his own. He glanced back. A rider with no head, spine whip cracking, grinning skull in hand, galloped from the shadows. The Dullahan raised the skull. "Noah O'Malley," it boomed, voice like breaking stone. Noah whipped the reins. The mare screamed, hooves tearing earth. The Dullahan's horse, eyes red, hide black, closed in. Whip cracks echoed. Noah prayed, crossing himself. The crossroads loomed. He leaned low, wind howling. The skull laughed. At the crossroads edge, a final crack. Noah fell, eyes burst, mouth open. 10 shillings clutched in his frozen hand. The mare stumbled home. The Dullahan's laugh lingered in the bog. In 1933, Depression-era Chicago, where breadlines snaked and flophouses reeked of despair, lived Maeve O'Connor, a 28-year-old Irish immigrant scraping by as a seamstress. The great crash had taken her savings, her fiancé, her hope. One rain-soaked October night, she spotted a hand-scrawled sign on Halsted Street. Room for rent, $1 a week, Mrs. Kowalski, 3rd floor. The building was a sagging Victorian, peeling paint, windows like empty eyes. Mrs. Kowalski, a widow in her mid-30s with pinched lips, handed over a brass key. No pets, no men, no questions. Maeve nodded, too tired to argue. The room was tiny, iron bed, cracked sink, closet no wider than a coffin. That first night, 11:47 p.m., Maeve woke to scratching, inside the walls like tiny nails. She pressed her ear to the plaster, a baby's cry, muffled, desperate. She froze. The cry stopped. Morning light revealed faded wallpaper with handprints, too small for an adult. Mrs. Kowalski shrugged. Old pipes. Night 2, the cry returned, louder, closer. Maeve lit a candle, followed the sound to the closet. The door creaked open. Inside, dusty shelves, moth-eaten blankets, and a tiny shoe. Leather, cracked, size infant. She picked it up. The cry exploded from beneath the floorboards. Maeve dropped the shoe, slammed the door. Blood seeped from the keyhole, pooling on the floorboards. She slept with the light on. By night 3, the walls wept. Red streaks ran down the paper, forming letters, Mama. Maeve banged on Mrs. Kowalski's door. The widow opened, eyes tired. You hear her too? She whispered. My daughter, 1925, stillborn, buried in the closet, couldn't afford a grave. Maeve ran, the key burned in her hand. She threw it down the stairs. The cry followed. Down the hall, into the street, into her dreams. Years later, the building was torn down. Workers found a tiny skeleton wrapped in 1925 newspaper, clutched in a woman's arms. Maeve, mummified, mouth open in a scream. The closet door was nailed shut from the inside. In 1922 London, where fog swallowed gaslights and typewriters clacked in cramped offices, lived Eleanor Price, a 24-year-old shorthand typist for a shipping firm. The post-war rent crisis had driven her from her family flat in Kensington. One drizzly November afternoon, she found a neat card in a newsagent window. Bedsit to let, 12/6 weekly, Mrs. Hargreaves, Bloomsbury. The Georgian townhouse was faded grandeur, creaking stairs, smell of damp coal. Mrs. Hargreaves, a widow in black bombazine, handed over a heavy iron key. Room 4, no gentlemen callers, no noise after 10. Eleanor smiled weakly, signed the lease in red ink. The bedsit was cold. Single bed, chipped washstand, wardrobe like a coffin, and a pram in the corner, gray lace canopy, rocking gently though the window was shut. That first night, 11:03 p.m., Eleanor woke to soft humming. A lullaby, hush little baby, the pram rocking. She sat up. No one. The humming stopped. Morning, the pram was still, but the lace was torn, stained with yellowish fluid. Mrs. Hargreaves sniffed. Old thing, belonged to my sister. Lost her boy to scarlet fever in 18. Couldn't bear to part with it. Night 2, the humming returned, closer from inside the wardrobe. Eleanor opened it, empty. But the pram now faced her bed, rocking gently. A gray figure, a woman in mourning veil, bent over it, back turned. Eleanor gasped. The figure vanished. The pram stopped. Footprints, bare, child-sized, led from the pram to the window, then stopped. By night 3, the lease on her dressing table was rewritten in red ink. Stay with my baby. Eleanor packed. The key wouldn't turn in the lock. The pram began rocking again, faster, faster. The gray lady appeared fully, face sunken, eyes milky, arms outstretched. He's cold, she whispered. Eleanor screamed, threw the pram at the window, glass shattered. She climbed out, fell 3 stories, broke her neck. The room was relet the next week. The pram was gone. But every tenant heard the lullaby. The lease always rewrote itself. The gray lady waits, rocking air. In 1977, Louisiana Bayou, where cypress knees rose like drowned fingers, Spanish moss dripped like ghost veils, and moonshine stills glowed in the dark, lived Delphine Boudreau, a 16-year-old Cajun girl with fire-red hair, freckles, and a rebellious streak that burned hotter than Tabasco. Her meme, Mama Odette, a traiteur folk healer, warned every full moon, never kiss a frog after midnight, Cher. The Rougarou watches. One peck and you wear his fur. Delphine rolled her eyes. Old swamp tales, she'd scoffed. On All Hallows Eve, the air was thick with jasmine and storm static. Delphine snuck out to Lafitte's Landing, a ramshackle bar on stilts over the black water. Zydeco pulsed from a jukebox. Teenagers danced in cut-off jeans, drank stolen Dixie beer. Lightning cracked. The power flickered. Delphine, tipsy, wandered to the dock's edge, barefoot, hair wild. A bullfrog, massive, eyes like glowing emeralds, sat on a cypress stump, croaking low. Kiss me, it seemed to whisper. Delphine, giggling, leaned in, pecked its cold, slimy lips. The frog vanished into the ink-black water. She wiped her mouth, taste of copper and rot. That night, 2:17 a.m., Delphine woke burning. Her bones cracked. Hair sprouted, coarse, black, on her arms, neck, chest. She stumbled to the mirror. Her eyes glowed yellow, fangs pushed through her gums, dripping saliva. She clawed at her throat. A howl escaped, not human. Mama Odette burst in, crucifix in hand. Mon Dieu, the Rougarou's kiss! She sprinkled salt, muttered prayers. Run to the swamp before the next full moon, Cher, or you hunt forever. Delphine fled at dawn, barefoot, clothes tearing. The bayou swallowed her. Fog thick, gators silent. She knelt by the water, praying. Something pulled from beneath. Fur spread, arms, legs, torso. Her scream became a howl. Fishermen found her torn clothes, floating, stained with blood and mud. The bullfrog sat on the stump, eyes glowing, waiting. On full moons, a wolfman prowls the levees, howling Delphine's name, eyes emerald, lips still tasting copper. In pre-colonial late 1570s, where nipa huts stood on stilts over rice paddies and coconut palms whispered secrets, lived Lourdes, a 17-year-old barrio lass with long black hair and eyes like polished narrow wood. She was betrothed to Mateo, a fisherman who carved love tokens from bamboo. Every Unda's Eve, the village burned candles for the dead. That night, Lourdes dreamt of a beautiful woman with skin like moonlight, bat wings folded, standing in the banana grove. One kiss, the creature purred, and you'll fly with me. Lourdes woke, lips tingling, a faint sweetness lingering. Still feeling confusion from her dream, Lourdes felt a tug from her spine. Pain shot through her back, skin split, wings unfurled, leathery veined. Her torso detached with a wet pop, lower half collapsing in bed, legs twitching. She rose, silent, through the nipa roof. Moonlight bathed her pale flesh. She flew over rice fields, tongue elongating into a spear, craving blood. Mateo woke to scratching on the roof. He grabbed a bolo knife and ran outside. A shadow swooped, eyes black, mouth open. She hovered, tongue darting. Mateo sprinkled salt from the kitchen jar. The Manananggal shrieked, torso plummeting. Salt burned her flesh. She crawled, dragging wings toward her lower half. Dawn broke. She reassembled, eyes normal, wings gone, but the craving remained. She kissed Mateo at sunset. He crumpled, skin ashen, body hollow. The Manananggal flies still, seeking lips, leaving salt trails in her wake. The fire dies. The shadows stretch, but the chills linger. You've survived 30 nights of dread in one cursed marathon. Thank you for joining the Eclectic archive around the campfire. Campfire Tales will return next Halloween with more ghosts, ghouls, and things that go bump in the night. Until then, sleep with one eye open.